This conference will now be recorded.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See my hand shaking. Look at that. Yeah, that's not bad. It's like I got, what is that stuff coming from?
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order in consideration of this evening's agenda. If there are no adjustments to the agenda, we're going to start with item number 1, which is requests or comments from the public. I should mention before we start that, for staff and council, please make sure you're speaking into the microphone so that the audio is a little clearer for online residents.
Madam,
Did we get a sign sheet for everybody?
I don't think we have that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I want to change pull the minutes out of the consent agenda for discussion.
So, can everyone hear all right? And I'll try to speak too, if that helps.
test.
Okay.
Like we're traveling the van.
Okay. So if we are still having public comments at that point, we'll break, go to revenue neutral rate public hearing, and open that back up if everyone didn't have a chance to share with us. So just so you know, you'll have an opportunity. When we start requests or comments from the public, as you come to the podium, please state your name, your address. You're going to have 3 minutes to share with us. And then as you get toward the end of your time, I'll hold this up just to let you know that you have about 30 seconds left. And if we have anyone who'd like to give a public comment, that's open now.
Hello, and thank you for allowing us to address the council today. My name is Don Curran. I live at 805 South 110th Street, and I'm here regarding the firehouse at 110th and Kansas Avenue. This firehouse is at the entrance to my neighborhood, which I just found out is a subdivision called Malott Timbers. Thank you to the Malott family. At any rate, I moved here in 1985. First thing that happened right off the bat is we lost a home to fire. It burnt to the ground. First couple of years I moved here. And then we had another fire. Of course, everybody knows about the 98th and Riverview, which was a complete loss also. So we do have fires and we do have emergencies on the north end. Currently, I have a 90-year-old mother that lives in my home, and she's a heart patient and is in the hospital tonight. That's where I got to go as soon as I get done talking. Our neighborhood has several disabled families on 110th Street and Kansas Avenue. At any time, any of them could need a resuscitator or oxygen and need some quick help. Of course, with heart situations, the brain's only got 10 minutes, so that's not a lot of time. Our neighborhood has several families, like I say, that have kids, young kids that have disabilities. So there's a lot of emergency needs that could happen. God bless that it doesn't happen. Anyway, time matters with the brain damage. I have felt very comfortable with having Luther Perkel's fire station when he planned it for the train and for the North End's future growth. I really was very comfortable with that. I can live with the fire station, but I cannot live with a maintenance department operation that has equipment, materials, and we do have pictures with us today, on a 1-acre lot. A 1-acre lot, there's no way it can house a maintenance operation for a city of this size. I've got 3 acres, so I kind of can visualize what that amounts to. There's just no way it's big enough to fit all that stuff on there, and I'd like to see a diagram, if somebody has one, showing where they're going to put all these trucks, sand spreaders, salt, sand, dirt, conduit pipes, and everything that we have strung up there. There's no way it's going to fit on 1 acre. It's a negative to our home values. It's an easy target for thieves and vandals. There's nobody securing that facility. And why you'd want to leave it there, I don't know. Take it down on the river. I can live with the fire station, but I can't live with the eyesore. Thank you for your time and considerations. In our neighborhood, what's a safe place to live with good response from the fire department and EMS services? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if anyone else.
Sorry, I jumped over from soccer practice. Jenna Woodbury, 717 North 7th Street. The RHID construction project between 4th and 102nd is well underway. And as a resident of Edwardsville Heights, I'm just wanted to come forward and advocate for this project to impact the community the best that it can for all of us. Edwardsville Heights, where we live, does not have a working fire hydrant. I'm here asking the city to work very closely with this project to try to push and piggyback on the development of the new subdivision, so we can get a fire hydrant in our neighborhood as well. The old location was at 7th and High Street, and it's currently just a capped off water line, and there is no actual fire hydrant. I'm also here to ask the city to consider the addresses 722 North 7th Street, 798 North 7th Street, and 800 North 7th Street as condemned properties that should be torn down. We're building a new subdivision, which should bring about 50 families to our community, and we're going to be asking these new buyers to pay upwards of $300,000 to live here. And the view from their back windows is going to be these addresses. These addresses are missing parts of their roof, have add-on structures and additional structures that were not permitted by the city. They have overgrowth so bad, attracting rodents and unwanted critters, and remainders of their trash are constantly littering our roads and our surrounding yards. We feel if we want quality citizens to come to our community, we should have a quality community. The residents in Edwardsville Heights are also aware of a commercial business called Affordable Tree Fellers operating off of what used to be 6th and High Drive, which is a residential neighborhood. In my personal opinion, yes, let's bring business to Edwardsville. Let's bring tax dollars into our community. But these commercial businesses cannot be located in the middle of a residential neighborhood. We have too many children in this neighborhood who are playing out on the streets. We play with each other. We're out in the yards. And these is large equipment coming and going on a daily basis. It's tearing up our streets, and it shouldn't be there. We please ask that you find a new location for this business and keep them in Edwardsville and keep getting their tax dollars, but hopefully out of our residential neighborhood. And then quickly and lastly, I would be interested in someone contacting me or providing the best point of contact for the guidelines in Edwardsville when building a new structure, a new home, on whether it's going to be septic or sewer. I don't seem to get a clear answer from anyone that I've been communicating with on whether there's an acreage guideline that's provided, 1 or 5, whether you're grandfathered in, if you're a half an acre, if there's no sewer within a certain amount of distance, can you stay on your septic? I would love clarification on that. So I appreciate your guys' time tonight, and thank you for listening.
Can I have your address again, please?
Certainly. 717 North 7th Street.
7th Street, okay.
And Jenna, if you'll leave your email address with Chantal, I will have staff follow up with you on your question. If we had anybody else.
Hi, my name is James Self. I live at 505 High Street, also in the Edwardsville Heights subdivision. And I have a couple of concerns. One is the speed at which vehicular traffic travels up and down High Street. As you can see, I'm holding my 3.5-year-old son, and I don't remember seeing a speed limit sign recently. And if those could be addressed, I would appreciate that. And if there could be some sort of enforcement, that would be fantastic as well. And the other thing is, and our neighbor Jenna already mentioned this, but the Affordable Tree Service commercial business that is just off of High Street there on 6th, I think it's a gravel drive now. But I am a commercial truck driver by trade. The stopping distance on a commercial vehicle is horrendous. And when they come out of that gravel driveway and come down our street, if my little guy runs out in front of them, we're going to have a funeral. And I am asking you to move that commercial business out of our subdivision so for the protection of our children. Until recently, it wasn't a big deal because we were always outside with him. But now he's got some friends across the street. And 3.5, 4-year-old kids, they don't think. And if he's got a ball out there or if he wants to go see his friends and he runs out there without us, we have a problem. So just asking you to please remove that commercial business off of our city street. any of you that have children or grandchildren, you wouldn't want those commercial vehicles running down your city street either. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chuck Nicoloy. I live at 825 South 110th Street. I'd like to echo a lot of the things that Don Carans has mentioned. I moved into the neighborhood in 1992, and there was a viable EMT and fire facility where the maintenance facility is today. And I've watched the facility go up and down now for years. We had the tragedy there at one point in time and lost a couple of city employees, I think. Bad situation. But since that time, it's just kind of lingered around, and then all of a sudden, the city maintenance truck showed up and filled up the parking lot. And at one point, it was really getting out of hand. I don't know who instigated the quasi cleanup that took place, but we sure appreciate that. Needless to say, there's several of us that put a lot of time and energy into building new homes down 110th Street, and also there's a lot of traffic on Kansas Avenue. And I'd like to echo Don's desire to get the EMT and the fire services put back where they were originally, reinstated. And oh gosh, there's several other points that I could address, but I think there's some other folks that would like to talk about their own properties, so I'll leave it to them.
And so we're getting a little bit toward our 6:15 time. And so what I'll do is pause the public comments. We're going to resume those tonight, so everyone will still have a chance to share. But that way, since we have a set time for public hearing, that we do that, and then we'll pick right back up. What was your name, sir?
Chris Kipp, 720 South 110th Street.
Chris Kipp.
Been
We'll
there for
pick up
27 years. You want to
with-
pick up later?
As soon as you'll be the first one up, as soon as
All right,
we're
that's
done with the public hearing part. So we're sorry about that. We usually don't have quite so many folks here, but we definitely want to hear from y'all. We're going to go to item number 2, the consent agenda. I believe there was Councilman Willott, did you have something to?
I wanted to pull the minutes off of that item and for this different discussion.
So you don't want to approve the minutes alone, you want?
But I'll make a motion to approve item number 2, B, and C.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve item 2, B, and C. Do we have a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call roll?
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes. Very quickly, remember that the meeting is recorded, so please keep your comments low. Maybe outside of YouTube, as we're doing it.
Discuss that at the end of the meeting, probably
So do the approval of the minutes? You want to discuss the approval of the minutes?
after the public.
Okay. So, which public hearing? I want to make sure I'm doing it in the right order. Do we start with the revenue neutral, which is item number 3 on the agenda? Conduct a public hearing for the purposes of considering exceeding the revenue neutral rate, R&R, developed by Wyandotte County for the fiscal year 2024 annual budget and take any necessary actions. I think we've got about 1 minute. So Zach, if you could kind of intro that, and then we'll have a motion to open the public hearing.
3, 4, and 5, Mayor. Our objective, and you got some updated information from us, and we took another look at a couple of other items. You need to overwhelm you with options, but you have a few more, and you'll hear from Zach Daniel, who will present those items to you.
Is your screen on there?
The screen.
Power switch.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of roadmap based on that. I know we're coming right up on the public hearing start time, but we can go ahead and start the public hearing and then go to the staff presentation, and I can run through that. And at that point, the public hearing would already be open, and we could open it up for public comment, council questions, things like that. But if we want to hit our time, then the motion would be to the council to open the public hearing.
At this time?
Yes, sir. In a couple seconds. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Now.
Mayor, I make a motion to open public hearing for the purpose of considering exceeding revenue neutral rate R&R developed by Wyandotte County for the fiscal year 2024 annual budget and take any necessary actions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Adcock, Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right, so just to, again, just to restate how the night will work, so we've got 2 public hearings scheduled. We'll run through the staff presentation, which is really going to try and cover all the bases for both of the topics. But the first public hearing is specifically about the formal action to exceed, provide notice of exceeding of the revenue neutral rate. We will then close that public hearing after some period of time and adequate public input and discussion. Then we will reopen the so at the conclusion of that public hearing, there is a possible resolution that the council would need to consider. After that action is done, we would then open the public hearing for the budget certification, the final budget certification, take public comment, council questions, things of that nature, close it, and then move on to potentially certifying the budget for fiscal year 2024. So on that, this will be the kind of broad strokes of our budget process to this point, just to show, kind of a roadmap of how we got here. We've had budget hearings or some discussion about public finances all the way back to April 24th of this year. The 2 formal actions that the council have taken to this point is adopting resolution 2023-06 on June 26th. And what that did is call for the public hearing that we're having right now about and providing notice to consider exceeding the R&R. So that resolution was adopted at that time and called for the meeting at this public hearing that's taking place right now. And then the other action was setting the maximum spending authority for the budget at the mill levy of 41.692, which is an action we took last time, which sets the maximum spending authority that we have. So with that action, essentially what we've guaranteed is that there won't be any mill levy increases in fiscal year 2024. We've essentially placed that cap at what the current mill levy is, and the most recent one adopted as part of the fiscal year 2023 budget. So those are kind of the steps and the different sessions that we've had in preparation for the public hearings tonight. You've seen this slide in pretty much every one of the presentations. This is just restating the staff priorities that we have had in putting together the budget presentations that we've been given. In no particular order, they are continue to make investments in critical city infrastructure, that's streets, public facilities, and public spaces. We've heard a lot of conversation and public input on the development of public spaces, so that's always a good thing to hear. This priority is really handled primarily through the city's debt service fund. And as has been presented and been discussed, the debt service mill levy at this point is not recommending to be changed. We're leaving that at the rate that it is now, and that we are in the position to make additional investments in streets, facilities, and public spaces. So the debt service piece of it, that's what handles that first priority that we talked about. We will then focus on employee retention and recruitment by monitoring and adjusting the city's compensation plan. Obviously, that's been a big point of discussion in the last couple of meetings. The general fund, 70 to 80% of the general fund, and even probably in excess of 80% goes towards paying people. It's probably closer to 85%. So paying people, paying benefits, that's really the bulk of what the general fund does, which is funded through a number of revenue streams, but primarily, as it relates to the hearings tonight, the property tax mill. Also focused in the general fund is where we would try and find that appropriate tax burden relief for residents. We've done a pretty good job the last couple of years of consistently providing mill levy reductions one year or the other. It averages out to about 1 mill reduction when you flatten out all the reductions that we've done every year for the past 7 years. Because we are keeping the debt service mill steady so we can have capacity to make additional investment, any cuts or adjustments to the mill levy would then come from the general fund. So these are kind of the 3 guiding principles that staff has looked at as we're putting together these budgets. So to touch real quick on the non-general fund areas, this slide is the same as what was presented last time around. So these are the other budgeted funds of the city, and the budgeted revenue and expenditures currently included in the fiscal year 2024 budget. The only one of these that is funded through the property tax is the debt service fund, and as discussed, the direction we've gotten from the council is to leave that mill steady. Everything else has got its own dedicated revenue stream. We've gone over kind of what's included in each of those funds, budgeted activity for fiscal year 2024. So I'll leave it up here for a second for you to look at. If there's any questions specific to the other funds, I can take those at this time.
Zach, is the special street fund, is that in a different area?
That is a special street, special highway. It's kind of, yeah, it's the same fund, yeah.
Okay.
So that fund, if we're talking about that one, out of those $573,000 in estimated revenue, that does include an estimated $375,000 of the county sci-fi funds. I believe that's got over the line at the county side of things. It's just a matter of calculating what the value of that quarter mil is essentially that would go towards the city. But I think 375 is pretty conservative. It's probably going to be closer to 400,000.
And so I just want to clarify that the 573
Yes.
should, because last year we budgeted 400,000 for streets in Edwardsville. And so sci-fi should be in addition to not taking away from what we're investing in our own infrastructure. And so I was expecting that to,
Are you talking about the budgeted expenditures?
well, the revenues.
Right.
So you're saying of the 573, 375 of that is sci-fi?
Yes, and the rest is made up of so we get state highway, county funds, and state funds, and the formula for that is really based on a preset formula from the state that that LKM discusses.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the revenue that we're taking in. If you're talking about $400,000 in street projects that was budgeted last year, I'd have to look and see exactly what was budgeted out of the special street fund. But we have a number of different funding sources that fund streets. So 100,000 of that comes out of special sales tax. Last year was probably around that 325, 350, I think, out of specifically the special highway, special street fund. And we've got various bonded projects that are out there that have gone towards street projects. I'll give you an example. The culvert project that we just did a couple weeks ago and approved, and is in the final stages of finishing up. Now that's a street improvement project and fixing that culvert, but we have bond funds related to drainage improvements where the funds are out of that fund, which aren't necessarily budgeted funds. It's their bonded money that's already out there. So this is specifically the money that would be budgeted out of the special street and highway fund.
So I'm just comparing last year to this year. So I have the special street fund specifically was 250,000.
Okay.
And we're lowering that by $52,000 in what we're investing in our own infrastructure apart from what we're
$250,000 in expenditures?
Was budgeted for last year out of the
Right.
special street.
And so we're budgeting $325,000 in expenditures for this year.
So
out of the special street
325
fund.
plus 375. Is that
No.
what you're saying?
So we've got in the special highway fund, we've got revenue that comes in and then expenditures that go out.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically in the special highway fund, we have state and county highway funds that make up the bulk of that. But that 573 is also incorporating $375,000 in the county sci-fi funds. So that's the revenue coming in. And then the expenditure going out that's dedicated to projects, that's that 250,000 you're referencing from last year. 325,000 is what is included in special street projects specifically out of that fund. Now we still have remaining bond funds in different areas and drainage and street improvements. And we also have $100,000 in special sales tax that's dedicated towards. So out of the budgeted funds that you're looking up here, 425,000 is dedicated towards street projects. 325 out of the special highway, that's those expenditures, and then 100,000 out of the special sales tax.
Okay. And so where will the sci-fi money show up?
The sci-fi money is showing up as a revenue line item in the special highway fund, so it is included in the $573,000. Now we will have additional funds. Well, what we avoided doing is, because it was kind of up in the air as far as what exactly the sci-fi formula was going to end up being. So we didn't want to include in the budget money that we didn't know that we would be getting. So now that we know and have some level of certainty that money, that sci-fi money is going to be coming towards us, now it's kind of up to the Public Works Department and the city leadership team to say, now that we know we've got this money coming in, let's dedicate it towards that. Okay. So really from a budgetary perspective, the only consideration that we can spend more in the special highway fund than 325,000. We'll just need to do a budget amendment at the end of the year that accounts for that, which is we do that in the special highway fund not infrequently because of different levels of activity we have out of there. So this is what we're budgeting for and what we had previously noticed. But we can certainly, with the kind of confirmation that we've got that at least 375,000. I think the intention is to dedicate that towards street projects.
I
Out
just
of
wanted
this
to
fund.
make sure that since we were getting 375 from Sci-Fi, that was in addition to what we normally budget
Right.
for streets in our city, and not offsetting that, so that what we normally would invest in our streets isn't being diverted somewhere else. That's all.
Gotcha. Okay. I think we're accomplishing that.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. So going on to the different general fund scenarios that we've talked about. So if you remember at the last meeting, so what has been previously noticed is that, we would not consider exceeding the current mill levy at 41.692. So that's what was noticed. That's the cap that we've got. So this is kind of recapping the different options that we looked at from a mill levy perspective, specifically as it relates to the general fund. So option A, that's essentially the no mill levy change at 41.692. And what option A includes is 3% step and 3% cost of living adjustments for all staff, the addition of one new full-time employee in the police department, one new full-time employee in the public works department who would be beginning in Q2, not before Q2 of next year, and then 3 new full-time employees in the fire department, all budgeted to start, sometime in the first quarter. So that's kind of, quote unquote, the all-in budget. Essentially, it's a repeat of the budget, the fiscal year 2023 budget that we put together, assuming that at that time we had kind of offset it with potential grant money. We didn't get that grant money last year, but we think we're in the position now to fund those staffing adjustments, fund those compensation adjustments, not increase the mill levy, and maintain the fund balance at 15% of expenditures. Option B is a half mill reduction from the current mill levy, so it would be an overall 41.192. It includes the 3% step and 3% COLA adjustments for all staff. It includes the addition of a full-time police staff member. It includes the addition of 2 full-time fire department personnel, one beginning in Q1, one beginning not before Q2. And it also includes the public works employee also beginning at Q2. So with those changes in staffing, that gives us a little bit more room to play with the mill levy and make those kind of identify those areas for potential tax burden relief. So that's where we get our half mill reduction possibility there, leaving us with an estimated general fund balance of 15.3. Option C is a full mill reduction, and that's essentially the same staffing compensation levels as what's been presented in option B. It just takes that that half mill reduction and converts it to a full mill reduction. And really the main difference between the two is a cash flow perspective. So if we wanted to maintain the fund balance so 15% is our rock bottom of where we want our fund balance to be. And that's kind of where, in the past we've budgeted around that. 15 to 18% is what our financial policy says. So anything over 18%, then we're definitely trying to scale back revenue and some of those areas. But when we're at that 15%, that's the area that we've got some play in, 15 to 18. So the difference between option B and option C is really just a cash flow question. Do we want to maintain a certain higher level of fund balances in the general fund, a little bit above our 15%, still under 16%, and we're really talking about playing in the margins here, or do we want to hit it at that 15.2% for option C?
Zach,
Yes, sir.
I meant to ask you this on the last meeting, but at the bottom line there on all 3 options, on the estimated general fund balance, I guess I'm confused on option A to C. How can we have less money in the first option than the option C?
So that's a good question. The reason is option A has the full 3, the addition of 3 full-time people in the fire department, all budgeted for the whole year.
Okay.
The difference in option B and option C from that is it's only 2 full-time fire,
Okay.
and they're staggered. Their hires are staggered out in the beginning of the year and at mid-year.
Okay.
So that's really the biggest difference from a staffing perspective. Okay. And the fire personnel really all in, once you incorporate their benefits and all that, it's really an $88,000 decision. to staff somebody for the whole year. So
Okay.
once you're backing that out, that gives you more of a play. So you're right. Option B has a mill reduction, but it actually leaves us with a little bit higher of a fund balance because the staffing isn't as robust as what's presented in option A.
So that's one of the biggest differences between those options is just that staffing, timing, the extra staff, that
Right.
staff.
So option A is full-time police person for the entire year, 3 full-time fire department personnel for the whole year, and 1 full-time public works person budgeted at Q2. Option B and C, full-time, same on the police and public works, but the fire is now only 2 personnel and they are staggered out.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir.
The option A and option B, it's like $670,000 difference on the general fund balance. We can clearly fund another fireman with that.
With a $500,000 reduction, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fund, general fund balance
Mm-hmm.
is $677,000. The difference between the revenue in option A and B is like 50,000, and the spending is like 10,000. I mean, pretty sure my math's right. I checked it twice, but I don't understand why first off, we haven't even talked about stepping in the police department at second, third, fourth quarter. It automatically came down to cutting the firemen. Now, I've been around the fire department a long time. You can't just hire 2. You have 3 shifts. You need to hire 3. And if we hire 3, that'll cut down on our overtime, correct, Chief? Yes, okay. And it will go a long way in funding, maybe eventually, this could set the groundwork for funding a second ambulance in the north end. If we build on this, which I know a lot of people want. I would not mind having one sitting there, but I just don't understand why we don't talk about public works, not hiring a public works person. Because I'll say it again, if you're having a heart attack in this town, who do you want showing up your front door? Guy cutting grass or a guy in a fire truck?
So on that note too, we do have some, we can certainly have more questions on this piece of it, but we do have some specific, monetary things associated with public works and just overall looking at staffing and compensation levels. So we can keep up here if we still got additional questions, or we can keep moving.
Well, I haven't answered my question yet.
Sure.
Why haven't we talked about stepping in the police officer to the second, third, fourth quarter, or the public work guy, and to make it so we get 1 additional person on each shift for the fire? We haven't even discussed that.
That's kind of what this kind of hearing is to do, yeah.
I mean, if anybody knew what happened this weekend, running 2 fires in a row when it's 110 degrees heat outside, that'll kill you. I know it don't happen all the time, but it only has to happen once. So are we going to talk about that? I mean, Chief, Mr. Mathies. I don't know what to call you, dude. Should we just, is there a way of, I know we're a little late in the game for this, but I was just considering this ever since the last meeting.
What we see is similar. What we're doing is cash flow. We're protecting the cash flow by choosing these options. And who would be, where would we at? What are the staggered for Chief Whittam's slide? What we talked about was the potential for the granddaughter team. So this gives us some time, because those things don't get awarded until after October. We have a pending application. So that was one of the concerns or considerations. The second with the PD, I know it needs to be looked my way. That tactically, from experience of 23 years of serving as a police chief, it takes 6 months to hire anybody. So I realized we would be planting that money at the first of the year, that sort of thing. We run 2 vacancies a year on average, and we have to right now. So sorry, Jeff, I'm answering the kind of short. But why I planted this money the way it was is one of the pending things we have, like I said, is the fire grant, and that may potentially change how we address it. But we have to go either either all in on everybody, or we stagger these. And the money would be similar, not necessarily the public works, we say a little more on the PD stagger. And if that's the choice, we can certainly do that. But percent-wise, it's not gonna be that. We can switch one for the other. That really won't have that much of an impact. But certain, as these numbers go, they'll stay fairly consistent. But if it's the preference of the body, we can certainly change which one we hire and when we hire it. That's not a problem at all.
So you're budgeted for 2 right now that we don't have, correct?
2, 4,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're down 2.
We have 2 regular vacancies.
Okay.
Turnover for the
All right.
bigger department.
Okay.
And that's common every year. We have an average of 2 vacancies.
So why are we hiring another one if we can't get 2?
In addition, and that was, every year we do an annual, at the police department, we do an annual staffing or personnel review about where we should be. And it's fairly complex. We do a pretty good job with it. I shared that with the mayor when she first came on as mayor to show her kind of how that all works. And essentially, it's all about our volume and that sort of thing. We competed for a grant ourselves, if you recall, last year. And once again, we were in a somewhat of a good financial position that our consideration was fairly low in scoring. And so they passed on us to have an extra person under the COP side of grant. So the reason behind that application, no different than the fire department, the need still exists, right? So we have come 9 years in a row, most of them without even an opportunity to present having one person added on. And that those ads have been about every 3.5 years we've made a request. And we could be at maximum staffing, right? Exactly where we ought to be by adding one. So that was the whole basis of the argument, is that we do an analysis, it's fairly extensive, and so
So how many additional full-time employees do you need? Just because I know that the changes the normal culture is run. You're just I'm asking how many full-time
Slices. Probably should have just gone for half the cake.
Oh, did you have a
I want to interrupt you. If the subject has come up a lot about reopening that North Station, I want to make the people that were lost in life in there was not Edwardsville residents. They were AMI.
No, they're masked.
Masked, they were not Edwardsville people at all. That was brought in here from somewhere else. So that's a misnomer that Edwardsville residents lost their lives up there. There was a murder. So I would ask Mark, since the subject is coming up, and I do look at Facebook, and I would be interested in trying to reopen that station in one way or the other. We're finding out the problems from the chief right here on the staffing issues. the city manager and I were both standing by the railroad tracks today, and we said, there's 5 engines pulling that train. And then 150 cars went by, there was 4 engines in the center. So another 150 trains came by and doing about maybe 25 miles an hour. I understand that. And I'm on the north side of the tracks. If I had a heart attack, I would definitely want that ambulance to be there in the times that we make. But when we're considering these budgets, and if we're going to talk reducing mill levies, we're not going to be able to staff these nor equip these machines and the equipment that we purchased for police and fire are extremely expensive. And I think that if we start thinking about trying to lower these mill levies like this, we're cutting our own throats by not being able to afford to staff the building and to equip the buildings. So that's the kind of things that's the kind of decisions that we have to make up here sitting on this dais. So understand that. And I am so happy to see so many people in this meeting tonight. This is usually the least attended show in town. And when an issue like this comes up, there's people out here, and that's what personally I love to see this, because it helps me form an opinion and helps me make a decision for this city. So what would we have to do equipment-wise to make that station up there to what the North End residents want?
Well, our chief is sitting right there.
As your
Well, okay, as my personal opinion, an ambulance. You don't need a fire truck up there right now. There's no need for it.
If I might, again, Mayor, Council, if you remember about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we approached this of what it would cost, what it would take. There was some back and forth about the total price tag. We settled somewhere around 1.2, personnel costs, equipment costs, everything else. I don't want to go on the record tonight and give any bad information and everybody walk out of here and then all of a sudden, oh my God, we can't afford this. The best recommendation, of course, that I can come up with is to allow myself and the interim city manager to come up with a couple different solutions as far as probable staffing, probable equipment costs. Not all of it has to be done brand new, but a practical solution that gives the governing body solutions, hard costs, and practical applications to look at of what a good solid 14 to 18 month, 36 month, 5-year window looks at for costs of immediate impact, 36 month or 3-year impact, and 5-year impact is what I'm looking at to your general fund budget, just so that you have an idea of what the tax revenues are going to look at down that window. Understanding that we do have that potential, that you do have that grant fund that may sit there and be highlighted, that you can still pursue that later on. But at my point in time, yeah, I would love to jump up and down and say, let's go do this. I also live here. It affects my wallet as well too. And I'm going to tell you right now that give myself and the interim city manager some time to come up with a couple probable solutions. It gives us the best probable course to give you, the governing body, the appropriate solutions that you all can make the determination on.
I think the focus right now is A, B, or C. And then we start these assessments and building a strategic plan around the expansion of the fire department, if that's so what you wish, to include using that North Station, because where's all that stuff now going to go right now? I mean, there's no solution right now. So I think the suggestion is stay on task with what we have to do. And if that solution is getting free people, you have these options because they're your choice, right? So we want you to tell us what direction that you want to go. And I think we're hearing a lot of conversation. I think we heard it from the public as well, that there is some movement for these other things. But I think what we have to stay on task right now is A, B, or C, and any version thereof. I think that's what we have to do today.
And what I'd like to hear too is the budget impact of adding so many staff members all at the same time as well. I appreciate the stagger, but in a typical budget presentation, we might have 1, maybe 2 full-time employees is the ask of our governing body. In this scenario, we are increasing our full-time employees by 10%, and in a city our size is quite a huge endeavor when we're talking about our residents who are scared of losing their homes. from their tax bill.
Assistant
And
City
so
Manager did
there's a
some
balance.
background on this, Mayor, and if
Good.
you'd like him to address that now, we can.
I have one more comment. I'm not saying that we're going to put an ambulance up there tomorrow. I'm saying this is a good building block for this. Because I realize what it takes to open an ambulance up. I've been involved in it. What I'm saying is if we don't look into the future and just looking at this piece of paper, we're hamstringing ourselves, I believe. And yeah, so I mean, like I say, I'm not trying to do it today, but I think we should start thinking about the growth that's coming. Because if the old saying, if you build it, they will come.
And we had it, and it worked.
So Zach, if you want to address the budget impact, if that's coming up in the presentation, that's fine. We'll just let you continue.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to cut short any conversation.
now.
I think we're good.
And we'll certainly circle back to some of these points, I'm sure. But as it relates to impact of staffing and compensation adjustments on the on the overall budget, so the total fiscal year 2023 adopted payroll was 3.6 million, and that included the 3 fire department positions that ended up not being funded through the grant, and an additional police department personnel that was not included in the grant, and it was not funded through a grant, as well as a police position that was really corrected within the budget of this year to more accurately reflect the police department staffing. So just to put a point on it, it included last year's budget included 5. The adopted budget for payroll included the addition of 5 new personnel. Now it was backfilled and done under the assumption that we would get them grant funding, and if we didn't, we weren't going to fund them, which is we didn't get the grant, so we did not fund them. But essentially, I mean, in a vacuum, what we are doing, what we have presented for fiscal year 2024 from a staffing level and compensation adjustments is essentially the same thing that we presented in fiscal year 2023. It's just absent the contingent of the grant funding as a mechanism, because our revenues, has been reported throughout the year, have performed this year as if we had received that grant money, just from sales taxes being up is a big thing. The leveling off and the stability of gaming revenue, IRBs, and all that. We collected as much revenue in 2023 that we had thought that we would in 2023 when we adopted the budget, when we assumed that some of that was going to be grant funded. So we did. I mean, in short, the staffing changes that we recommended last year, so the addition of those 5 additional people, we could have done that this year, even not include, in hindsight, knowing what the revenue that we would get from these other sources, even having not gotten that grant. And so that's the position we are in fiscal year 2024, is that the data metrics that we've discussed and I've shared with you, point to revenue being at the point where we can essentially execute the staffing adjustments that we recommended in 23 as part of the 2024 budget, and it not be contingent on specifically any external grant funding. So option A is really only, if you're comparing budget to budget, as far as budgeted positions in 23 to budgeted positions in 2024, is really only a $50,000 difference.
Does the 2023 payroll budget 3.617 include the grant money?
It does include the grant. I'll get to that in a second. So the fiscal year 2020, if we're looking at options B and option C, it's actually a decrease as from what was presented last year, just based on the staffing that was presented last year. Now, if you're looking at actually what was, our estimated payroll for this year, it is, between a $400,000 and $5,000 increase from 23 to 24, based on the current, how we think payroll is going to shake out by the end of this year. And that is because
500,000, is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am. Between 400,000 and 500,000, because what was budgeted was grant positions that were not filled, and then we've had, a not insignificant amount of staffing vacancies throughout the year. So that's where those, if you think about it, a fire department personnel is worth, from I should say what it costs is about $88,000 this year. And so if we just assume that that's going to be relatively the same for a police department personnel, police department ad, because they've got similar retirement, 88,000 times 5, that makes up that 500,000 pretty quickly in unfunded positions and unfilled positions, because they were unfunded through grants last year. So the swing is from one year to the next, from budget to budget perspective, really is pretty, it's relatively flat and it's a decrease. But if you're looking at actual what we did staff and what we dealt with from a vacancy standpoint, that's where you see that increase.
So I guess I want to clarify, because grant funds are not revenue from our property taxes. And so what the actual budget would have been if you take out the grant funds from 2023 is 3.17 approximately.
Yeah, about
And we're
three.
bumping it up to 3.6. So it's not even, it's a $500,000 difference. And on an $8 million budget, that's a pretty impactful chunk of money. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous to think that it's equal when it's a $500,000 different than an $8 million budget. When we're looking at that for year to year, and then next year we're going on COLA increases and step increases, and then the year after that's COLA and step. And so we just want to make sure that we're really considering the tax burden and the budget implications of adding so many all at once.
To respond to that a little bit, really the impact that we're seeing from a revenue standpoint that allows us to be in the position where we can make some of these staffing adjustment recommendations is really coming more from the increases in sales taxes that we've seen, and the increases that we saw in that we've seen in 2023. Also, I should note, court fines as well have been pretty operating at a high level. So between we budgeted a certain amount of revenue in those areas, and with the level that they're performing at now, that more than makes up for the $350,000 in grant money that we went after last year. So it's not all at the being shouldered by the property tax. That's not the only funding mechanism within the general fund, and just the overperformance of some of these other revenue items specifically. That's where we're getting more of the justification for. We think we're in a position where we can fund at this staffing level more so than what did the property tax do or not.
And
It's certainly a factor, but
will that come up where we'll see the increase in sales tax probably?
We won't specifically talk about we can. I don't have any slides dedicated to that. We've gone over it in the past.
Mayor, and I might add, not to belabor the point, but in the sense of the grant funding was budgeted in such a way, when they talk about payroll budget, that's an expenditure. So no matter what we had to pay the people, we thought the grant fund would hire 3 people, but we have to pay them for our budget, so we had to budget that expense. We also would have grant revenue to offset, right? And that's not really reflected here, so you're seeing all expenses. So that's probably right, because we have to budget that particular money in our last year's budget to show that we were going to expend it no matter what. We would have an offsetting revenue source, however, but that didn't come to fruition, and we did not spend it.
Right. Well, we
Right,
did.
and
Well,
that's why I think
the offsetting revenue source didn't come from grant funding, but we did have offsetting revenue in the overperformance of sales taxes, court fines, things like that.
I would like to say something about grants. I've been real familiar with them, and one of the things they look at when they look at the grants, it's a really tough process. But if you cut your budget, if you lower your mill rate, you're not getting that grant, because hey, they got they're lowering their mill rate. I've seen it happen.
Have we received any grants in the last 6 years?
Well, but I think he's talking about staffing grants.
Staffing
specifically.
grants.
Yeah.
Mhm. Safer grants.
Not.
Okay. So we don't have any safer grants.
Safer, and then the other one's called the COPS.
And
Those
so
are
if
the
we-
two higher grants that we would normally pursue.
Right, and if we fill the position before they award us the grant money, that won't impact, because we're filling out a grant saying we need assistance, correct, in hiring these positions. And so if we hire the position before we're awarded the grant, won't that have a negative impact on our grant application?
My common sense would suggest there's something called supplanting, we kind of mentioned it last time, that we have to just be careful. We may be able to get a waiver, that sort of thing, but what we wanted to demonstrate in the grant application, that we had a need. A certain level of staffing is appropriate for safety and response, and that sort of thing. So the need, just because we're deciding to fund it, right, the need hasn't gone away. So we may be able to fund these if the grant is awarded based on some sort of waiver or other supplanting rule that will allow us to, I wouldn't say circumvent that, but budgeted for it, as I suggested last time that we met. If you're hiring 3 people, you're paying for 3 people at this point. You gotta win 100% that this grant doesn't exist. It's an opportunity, yes, but it hasn't been approved yet. And we're gonna get October or later before we know that word, and we'll have this process done. So I think if you're going, for example, option A, you're 100% in funding 3 full-time firefighters. Then there's an opportunity, again, rule of regulation, which we can request some sort of waiver on supplanting, we would do that.
So it's a grant saying that we need help with the finance. Is that correct? That's
Yeah,
the need.
there's multiple components in it, and
Okay.
in the sense that our staffing levels are at a certain, maybe unsafe. It doesn't support a proper response under some of these regulations. Instead of these general detention by things, and that we're trying to get our staffing to where we can have these teams of people who can do safety things, people who can, pursue firefighting tasks and that sort of thing. And when they assemble, that there's enough people to assemble and start those kinds of things. We're saying our staff is depleted and we're not staffed at a certain level, that we need those folks to be on staff, and we want you to help pay for them. Chief?
Even if we hire the 3 before the grant money's issued. Perfect. Okay.
So there were several organizations last year that did the same process that we were talking about doing. That went ahead and said we got the need, this staff. And they had to do
Good. Thank you.
There's 3, the ultimate decision, that's what he needs, because it's an A and B type step. They have this per-3 hybrid schedule, that's a unique to the fire service. And so that's really the question that they're answering, is do we need it in A, B, or C? Which model best gets us to where we need to go?
Yeah, and B and C, I should say, also come with kind of the built-in assumption as we talk about fiscal year 2025 that third fire personnel would be added. And to the chief's point about really the discussion around fire staffing is, do we have a need for it when this body has already adopted resolutions to that effect and authorization to go out for the grant, that we have recognized the need for 3 additional staff members. We've done that the last 2 years via resolution. And then to comments from the dais and from public comments too, it's really that first step in planning for additional development and the potential staffing of other satellite facilities in the northern part of the city, which additional staffing is going to be needed at some point. And whether it's done now or late, if there's a recognition that it's going to come, this is essentially us putting together a package that makes that first step towards that.
I think it'd be appropriate at this time to very least tonight. Within reasonable time limits, I think a lot of this discussion probably would be very helpful and relevant to potentially the comments that we but have a count.
I don't have a formal count, no, but I could certainly kind of
Absolutely.
give up the day.
Are you do you have a lot left in the presentation?
There's only a couple more slides. I imagine I can get through this piece of the presentation in the next 5 minutes.
Let's and so that we can get to the public hearing, and then we also have to pick up our public comments from earlier.
Right.
Because we stopped those so that we could start the public hearing.
So
Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah. Right, absolutely. So this is for the public hearing regarding the
exceeding the revenue neutral
exceeding
rate.
revenue neutral rate.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So since these three options will be more relevant to the budget, most likely the decision that says revenue.
Okay, so we can pause this, open the public hearing for revenue neutral, and then let Zach finish up, and then we have another public hearing.
On the budget.
Yep.
The budget, and then also what levy.
So we've opened the public hearing now, so I can go ahead and step aside and give folks a chance at the
Okay.
dais to kind of to run through that to the attorney's point. And then at the conclusion of that, like we can either close the public hearing and I can finish up the presentation and then we can take whatever action and then open up another other public hearing. So I'll go ahead and leave these sections up because these are the kind of options that have been presented and all of them exceed the revenue neutral rate. So I'll concede the dais.
Okay. And so our public hearing's already opened. If anyone would like to share with us a public comment during our public hearing regarding exceeding the revenue neutral rate developed by Wyandotte County for fiscal year 2024.
You might take a show of hands of how many people and count, and then we can determine what the.
Yes. If we're going to open that back up for public comments. So what happened is we have to publicize a certain time that we'll have our public hearing for the revenue neutral. So that's why we started that right at 6:15. But we are absolutely still going to open up for public comments for things other than revenue neutral and budget. Absolutely. Okay, so show of hands if anyone's here to share with us regarding the revenue neutral, exceeding revenue neutral. There being none. Am I reading the room right?
Nobody wants
I'm
to step
sorry.
up and talk about the revenue neutral rate. This is the public hearing portion of just that specific topic.
Okay, so then should we close the public hearing portion? So I'll hear a motion to close the public hearing public hearing for the exceeding revenue neutral rate.
Make motion.
Okay, so moved. I have a second.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Yes.
So if we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate, I guess before I finish up this presentation, because this, to the attorney's point, this does relate a little bit more to the actual budget adoption. So the resolution that's included in the packet, Resolution 2023-08, is the resolution of the City of Edwardsville stating the governing body's intent to levy a property tax rate that exceeds the R&R. So we have concluded the public hearing to do that. We have already noticed the public hearing that's coming up right after this that sets our maximum at 41.692 mils. And so that's what this resolution essentially does, is saying that we have noticed the hearing about possibly exceeding the resolution, the revenue neutral rate. We have held that public hearing, and we are resolved that we will be exceeding the R&R at a rate not to exceed 41.692. At which point, once we will then open up the public hearing for the budget, this body can bring that number, that mill levy down. This is just another one of the state statutory processes new with the R&R. Is that, I capture that right? All right. So
The motion would be to approve the resolution, or pass the resolution to approve exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Adcock,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malott,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay. And so now would we have Zach finish the last couple of slides and then open the public hearing for the annual budget? Is that correct?
Yeah, and so that, as Zach said, the budget passed, which will exceed the shall not count the budget for tax rate as proposed tax rate. That's stated in there that provided consideration to the budget. Yes.
Yes, sir. So that's the maximum that we noticed previously for this public hearing. That was included in the resolution that was just adopted. It's just another one of those really helpful state statutory required budget recipes. So as we're continuing with this conversation, I'll go and finish this presentation, then we can formally open up the public hearing for adoption of the budget. So here are those options again. We got what's been the staff presented budgets. No mill change at full staffing levels for 3 for fire, 1 for police, 1 for public works at Q2. And then option B and C, either a 1.5, either a 1/2 or 1 mill reduction that has the police ad, the public works ad at Q2, and then 2 fire department ads staggered. The only difference between B and C is really a cash flow perspective. We were asked, there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting about the public works full-time employee and the impact to the budget. So the total cost of what's been proposed for a public works position that would start no earlier than Q2 of next year is about $58,000. The mill value for that, the easiest way is just a mill is essentially $100,000 in this year's budget. So just using round numbers, 58, that's going to be about a $500,000 impact in those kind of terms. The impact of a $500,000 one way or the other on a property in Edwardsville that would be valued at $287,000 equates to $16 a year. If we were to convert the public works position to a part-time, full-time equivalent, so 2,080 hours, but not made up with part-time work, so what you're saving there is mostly in health benefits and capers and things like that. The equivalent is $32,000, which is a little bit more, but for the purposes of the discussion, about a $0.25 And the impact of a $0.25 adjustment one way or the other on a house valued at $287,000 is going to be about $8 annually. We were just kind of asked to put some numbers to the cost of those public works positions. So if we were to outright eliminate again, that's not the staff recommendation to do that, but for the sake of argument, if we were to outright eliminate the addition of the public works employee that would start at Q2, then we would either have an addition to the fund balance, so another cash flow decision, or the ability to adjust the mill levy down another $500,000 potentially.
And Zach, you did say that the $500,000 example there, that was hiring a public works full-time employee the first quarter, or did you say second quarter?
Second quarter, so not before April, so right around the mowing season.
So do you have a first quarter example?
None of the scenarios that we presented incorporate a first quarter hire for public works.
I think a lot of the work done by our public works staff, it revolves around potholes and asphalt and mowing, which is all kind of seasonal. So that's why I felt like the part-time, if we're keeping the position in the budget, the part-time would make sense for that department, in addition to saving $500,000 for our residents.
You're absolutely right. I was just thinking though, in the wintertime, snow removal, talking about sidewalks, bringing on sidewalks, new sidewalks. So that's going to be staff or contracted help to manage those. So
and it's also to that point too. I mean, I think you're right. Monetarily, one is cheaper than the other. I think in practice, though, I think what we found is hiring part-time is a little bit more difficult than hiring at full-time, just in the current labor market.
There's also liability concerns.
Well, I would also add too, I know posting and filling a full-time job and then finding out down the line all the slow days, the days when there's nothing to do. And I know there's nothing to do, but the slower times, I feel a part-time is better to start with. You can always go full-time when you deem it's necessary. That's why I asked that question a couple of meetings ago, is what has changed to promote a full-time job?
I think what the interim city manager's response to that was pretty well stated in that it from an operational perspective, it gives that additional body in Public Works for safety purposes, just if you have, what's the term that you use, Chief? If you have,
You have one, you have none.
there you go. Yeah, if you have one, you have none. And so it also, when you're dealing with just regular staff vacancies due to sickness or vacation or just,
Right,
not
right.
having somebody in there, having that additional body helps kind of make sure that we maintain those safe levels of crew numbers.
But I'll make another couple of comments too. I have to maybe agree with Councilmember Bishop on the 3 full-time fire department members. Possibly a part-time Public Works, just because in Public Works, we can hire out some of that work. We can have a company that does the cemetery do, that's more manageable than the fire department position. But a full-time, a full-time, to me, I don't know if it's justified yet, but obviously our department heads have to give us that information.
And we were just informed that we moved the parks full-time employee under the Public Works umbrella so they could be an extra body when needed. So
Well,
I
that
feel
wasn't
like
really
helps
to
as well.
provide them an extra body. That's really just a management change to shift that from administrative to more of the management and oversight of Public Works.
Well,
They have a
we
lot
were-
of shared resources and duties, but it's not really that person's focus will still be where it's at right now, which is trails, parks, that kind of thing. So it's not, that work doesn't go away with the oversight being changed from parks to Public Works.
It doesn't, but it does kind of go away when the park's been mowed or when it's November and we're not mowing and we don't have as much going on in the park. So that's when there's several days a year that position could, and that was what was presented to us, was that position could step over should need be, being under that umbrella.
Yeah, well, they could do that now.
It builds in flexibility that we don't otherwise maybe have, and we don't have any continuity in the service there because nobody else knows that job. Though it may seem simple, but there's a rhythm, there's a routine to it. So we would have some cross-training opportunities and supervision, quite frankly.
Right. Is there any part-time staff right now?
Mostly in the Parks Department. I mean, there's not really any part-time
Works,
folks
no?
in Public Works right now. No.
So Parks Department has 1 full-time, 1 part-time?
As one full,
Seasonal.
well, for seasonal, I mean, the seasonal levels are really not based on, how many individual people. It's really just based on hours. So
Like your officials and stuff.
Right. So it's your officials, it's your,
But talking employees, is there just 1 full-time?
there's the parks supervisor who does do some maintenance, but his primary focus is in that programming area and scheduling and developing and putting out programming. And then there's the full-time grounds person who's got the duties in the cemetery as well.
I think on staffing, correct, one full-time person that's under his umbrella is for maintenance. That 100% funded from the sewer fund. And yes, he reports that there are 2 full-time Public Works employees funded through the general fund, and then 1 full-time parks general fund utilized by Public Works administration. That would be our parks maintenance individual. That's his current staffing model in addition to himself.
In addition to the other park supervisor?
The park supervisor doesn't do the maintenance.
Right.
He's more of the event specialist.
His maintenance is more centered around, if for whatever reason weather causes a delay in when mowing get done on fields, and from a maintenance perspective, if he's doing maintenance, it's structured around the park and programming, things like that. So getting fields ready, fields prep, ag lime down at the baseball fields dragged, that kind of thing.
Did you have anything else for staff?
Not on this specific slide, no.
Real quickly on that, I have a list. It's 2 pages. I'm sorry to see it far away, but I can send this list out to you just for your information. It was just provided to me and I took a note on it. But that's from all the duties, the punch list that they have daily, weekly, monthly from the Public Works. So if that's helpful, I can send that out to you.
So, I mean, just to kind of circle back, we've got these potential scenarios for certification, option A, B, and C. This is essentially the repeat of the first slide with that note at the bottom that if we factoring in these different Public Works considerations where, if we were to make a change and either not fund it or fund it at a part-time level, we've got these. So option A with the public work consideration would be up to a quarter or a half mil decrease to make that change in a public works perspective and still get all three of the fire department personnel funded and in quarter one. So this is just kind of putting a pin in this presentation with the different considerations for public works that's been discussed, if that's the direction that they want to that you want to go. Any other questions before we close the hearing? And then if there's questions that come up in the public hearing piece of it that I can answer, then I'll certainly do that.
So I guess we could open it for public hearing for the, let me read it right. Public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2024 annual budget. So have we made a motion for that part?
We need a motion.
We need a motion.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Mayor, Council, I make a motion to open the public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2024 annual budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 So if any of the public are here that would like to comment on the fiscal year 2024 annual budget, and we'll still have public comments again after this, but this is regarding the fiscal year annual budget. So the letter you got in the mail regarding the mill levy and your tax bill, the floor will be open. And same as before, please state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes. I'll give you the little signal when we're getting close to the end, if we have anyone for that. Everybody? Okay.
I move to close the public
I got a
hearing.
question. So this ends the public comment altogether tonight, or what's going on here?
Just to clarify, this is regarding we have multiple public comments, so to speak. We had to close down the first public comments because we ran out of time. So we were going to pick the regular public comment back up after our public hearings. But the public hearing is pertaining to the tax bill,
Yeah, right.
the mill levy. Sure, of course.
Mayor, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt option A, the mill levy at 41.692 total mill levy, with the looking at a part-time public works employee.
Second.
Okay, and I think we'll have some council discussion really quick because we had public hearing but not council discussion. We'll start off just briefly.
Motion on the floor.
Yeah, and we're gonna have discussion. I spoke with the county tax assessor. They came out earlier this spring and presented to us the tax increases regarding Edwardsville residents. I followed up with him in the last couple of weeks just to verify that if we leave the mill levy the same, which is the motion on the floor, the average household tax bill will increase by $850 this year. And so that in the last few years, 2017, and now that's not just the city, that is if all the taxing entities leave their mill levy the same.
Right, that's what I was
So
gonna
in
ask.
2017, the average house value right now is $245,650 according to our county assessor. In 2017, their total tax bill was $2,948. 2018, their tax bill was $3,062. 2019, their tax bill was $3,344. 2020, their tax bill was $3,576. 2021, their tax bill went up to $3,600. 2022, their tax bill went from $3,600 to $3,943. So that was a little bit more of a jump. And then if we kept the mill levy the same rate at 2023 from 2022, their tax bill is now $4,693. So the amounts from 2017 to 2023, that was nearly $995 of an increase for the average single family home. When you look at all of the entities combined, that was their bill, went up about $995 over 6 years. That was about $165 per year increase, which is already quite burdensome on those in our community that are on a fixed income. To some of us, we can work overtime and make the extra money. Living on Social Security and a fixed income, not everybody can come up with $165 per year. However, with the recent assessment increase, if all of the entities affecting our Edwardsville residents leave their mill levy the same, so do what we're talking about doing tonight, the average single family home bill will increase $850 this year instead of the previous $166. This is exactly how people are being taxed out of their homes. Other entities are tightening their budgets to make the impact as small as possible. Bonner Springs has a proposal tonight at their city council meeting to reduce by 2 full mills. We are not only looking for pay increases across the board, but looking at hiring 4 to 5 additional full-time positions when everyone else is tightening their budget. We learned tonight that the impact of the presentation is about $500,000. The mill levy, even if we leave it the same, only encompasses about $300,000. So that's a $200,000 difference year after year if we don't increase our pay with COLA and STEP. We want to take care of our staff because they do a fantastic job for our city. But we've heard from our staff, if we don't build new buildings, that's going to be detrimental to our staff, city hall, fire, and police department. If we don't hire additional personnel, that's going to be detrimental to our staff. If we don't offer a full 6% increase, which over the last 5 years would equate to a 21.5% increase in pay over the last, that was going to be detrimental to our staff. At some point, we need to prioritize because we have so many households and businesses. We only have so many households and businesses to support the staff priorities. Where we're looking at what is detrimental to our staff, hardly anything in the budget is there to improve quality of life for our residents. When we're looking at our general fund, all of that comes from our special sales tax. I understand cost of living has gone up and we want to take care of our staff as far as cost of living go, but our residents have the same cost of living pinch when they go to the gas tanks and to the grocery stores. We need to take a vote, and I understand that. I just don't see how we could possibly put a budget forward that would have that sort of tax implication on people in our city.
Amen.
Mr. Mathis, is it true that 70% of the property taxes in Edwardsville is paid by the industrial park?
More on the dollar, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. And we have 5 businesses coming off the IRBs this year or next year, or did they come off already?
Within the next 14 months.
Yeah,
14
within the
months?
next year, 2 years or so, we do
Yeah,
have 3
14
to
to
5.
24 months,
Okay.
I would say.
Look, I'm opposed to taxes too. I pay my taxes are higher. If you knew, it'd scare you. But it's because of my land. But anyway, I just feel that in order for us to move forward fire department needs help, cops need help. I mean,
I'm sorry, but.
Oh, wait, no.
Whoa, hold on, wait.
Hold on.
I think we've,
Mayor, he's out of order.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry,
We'll
sir.
actually have a chance for public comments as well. But since
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, yeah. Sorry about that. So we'll have a public hearing part's closed, but then we'll open up public comments as well. But we have to finish this part. Sorry about that.
Zach, I thought the last presentation that you showed us between if we keep it neutral or flat, and not increase to the 1% decrease, I thought you showed us a slide that was like a $17 impact to our citizens per year or monthly.
monthly,
A
right?
17, I think it was 17 or 14.
Yeah, I don't have that exact same slide, but essentially the swing between a full mill decrease and leaving it as is.
You're right.
For a what was a 280,000 house, and
Right.
I pulled a real world example out
In
of
River Falls.
Out of River Falls, yeah. I think it was between 140 and 150 annually. So when you
Right.
break it out per year, that's
So what the mayor is telling us, that is scary, and it's heartbreaking because we've all seen those major increases, with Wyandotte County appraisals. All of our house appraisals have gone up astronomical, and it's due to the market. We know that. Edwardsville did not increase, the tax burden. It was, our appraisals on our homes from Wyandotte County. But I guess I'm confused on the numbers that you're showing us or telling us compared to what, Zach,
Well,
you
I-
showed us a couple, months ago or weeks ago.
Yeah, I think the main difference is in what the data points that the mayor is referencing is really all encompassing of all of, if hypothetically, if all of the taxing entities that Edwardsville residents pay their tax bill towards, so that's the city, the county, the school district, the state, the library, the community college, if all of those entities were to remain flat, then it would incur those impacts that the mayor is talking about. What our presentations have focused on is really just the really only 24% impact that we have any local control over.
Right.
So that's what our budget has been focused on.
Right.
I mean, there is those other considerations as what the other taxing entities are doing. That was another part of our presentation last time around was, we've lowered it at 7 mils at a rate of a mil a year for the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's evidence that we have been, I think, cognizant of these different changes in the economy and have tried to offer those property tax burden relief. I think the point with this budget is, and how it's been presented is, we wouldn't have presented any mill levy decreases that we felt were financially irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
So any of the options that have been presented from a staff perspective, we're comfortable with operationally where that sets us up in 2024. Now, obviously, from a staffing level perspective, there might be certain preferences, but we're not going to present anything from a staff presentation that we don't recommend.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess that's in a nutshell. That I think those are the differences in the numbers that have been talked about, where the mayor is kind of talking more on that macro level,
Right.
and these presentations, what the decision you are making is really focused on the mill levy piece of it that the city is involved in.
Right.
And just to clarify, that with the 850 is if everyone, so what we're getting ready to vote on is leaving our mill levy the same as it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
If every entity does the same thing, then the average household in Edwardsville gets an $850 increase annually on their bill.
Yeah, we don't control that part of it though.
We don't, but we can do our part. And
Yeah.
so our part is ranging
The
from
21%.
about 24%.
24 about
24%. And when we're talking, and I talked to the assessor, and what we need to understand is just because someone's home is technically worth more money, that does not put more money in their bank account.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we know.
To pay our government. And yes, the increases affect our bill and our expenses when we have to put gas in our police cars and our fire trucks and ambulances. But when most entities are having the discussion and how can we reduce, because the tax burden has been so overwhelming to our residents year after year after year, by us saying, well, it's just $17 a month, or it's just a cup of coffee
Yeah.
a month. Well, if every entity does just a cup of coffee a month, 12 months down the road, that's a pretty big bill. And then the year after that, that's a really big bill, and it keeps adding and adding. And then we have people that are coming through our food lines saying, I cannot pay. I'm so thankful to just get some groceries because I can't afford to pay my bills. We won't have residents to support our staff if we're taxing them out of our community.
Do we have, speaking of the food drive that you guys do, it's a great opportunity, to get food to citizens that need that. But I'm just curious, do we have a number of how many Edwardsville citizens actually, go there compared to Olathe or Johnson County or somebody else? I mean, do we have that statistic? I'd like to know that maybe next time, what that percentage is. But I think, Zach, I mean, you've done a phenomenal job with our presentation. You always have. And I mean, I've been on this board almost 2 years now and been part of last year's budgeting, and we reduced the mill, 0.5%. And according to what you just said and my records, it's been reduced the last 6 or 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
Consistently. And when I did my research over the weekend, other cities were actually holding, flat or actually increasing. And I think, we did the right thing over the years to reduce our mill, and that's great. I'm concerned as a citizen, I'm concerned as a council, if we continue to set this precedence of lowering, the mill levy, which I understand it's the tax burden, I'm concerned because of all of the, what we've all seen personally in our lives about everything going up. I mean, from food to milk to gas to interest rates. I mean, how the interest rates are off the chart compared to what we've seen in the last years. And, we've done what we thought was best over the years, and that's great. But I am absolutely concerned if we continue to set this precedence. I understand we have a motion, on the floor, keeping it flat or not increasing or not lowering it. Because I want to make sure that we provide the same level of service, to all of our citizens. I want to make sure our public safety remains at the focus, just like it is now. I'm really concerned, if I can say that, the amount of staff that we're continuing to lose. I mean, we've lost 2 of our top leaders in the last 45 days. Just, Chief, our interim city manager, you're normally go with 2 people short every year. And so, I am in favor of keeping our mill levy the same, because I think I would love for us to be able to support our staff and give them the bump, the step raise. And I know we have the COLA in place for, cost of living adjustment, but we are behind the times when we're losing, good staff to Missouri, and not that I want to compete with Johnson County, but other cities our size, their hourly rate and salary is more than ours. So, if we need to adjust our COLA instead of 3% to 6% in 2024 by leaving this, the same, that's encouraging to our staff. And that's encouraging to you, Mark, and to Chief Tim, or with them, to try to build our staffs back up and to be where we need to be. And so I completely hear about the concern of the rates. But just like we've all seen these expenses increase, so has our city. I mean, it's out astronomical what our city expenses have, gone off the chart. And then with what we are wanting to do as a council in next year and in 2025 with new facilities for public works, we know we've got to find a place for public works. We know we need to build structure, new facility for fire and for police and for public access, for public, locations. And with the tax rate or the interest rate where it's at today, I'm afraid who knows what it's going to do next year or the year after. But I know those things are coming down the pipe. So it's a hard decision to sit here. But I think instead of, doing the political answer, if you will, I think just the common sense part of it, I want to say is, we need to think about trying to plan for the future of our kids living here, of all of us living here, and trying to make sure we make the right decision today for the future. And I completely agree today, with leaving this mill levy the same, going by what, Zach has told us, the last 2 weeks about the increases. I'm tired of losing good staff to neighboring agencies, and we can't run a city with short staff. I mean, you guys are just, look at Chief with him. He has no hair. I mean,
Well, and just to clarify, the staffing is a national issue. Some
It
of the
is.
largest departments neighboring us that have the highest salaries are not fully staffed. People don't want to work. And that's a whole political national issue right now. We can't just throw money, especially when people are hurting so badly.
but it's when it's obvious that our wage is lower than others and we don't have new facilities. I mean, our police department is in many for the last 7 years for a portable structure. And Chief Witham is in a portable mobile. His office is in a portable mobile mini for how many years? It's all temporary. And so when we don't have nice facilities and our wages are, less than some, that's difficult. So we're trying to work on this, as a council and as a city staff. And I just,
Are you talking about, when you're talking about keeping the staff, you're talking about the police and fire?
Is that what you're talking about?
All
You're talking about
staff,
city staff.
all staff.
So.
I think we have more people leaving soon.
Well,
Yes, we do.
what I have understood from the turnaround, and I'm speaking from personal experience, because like I said last time, I'm speaking for on the fire side, the EMS side. My husband came from Leavenworth when he was fresh out of paramedic school. He got on where he could, and then and this is the thing with all of the young medics, all the young firefighters. The goal is always to get to the cities that pay the most, that have the most benefits, the best action, everything. They're looking for pay, benefits, retirement. They're looking for action, more house fires and stuff like that. And I'm telling you right now that I don't know if that's actually going to change, because Edwardsville is small. It's not feasible to keep up with bigger cities like KCK, KCMO, Johnson County.
Oh, I'm just talking about keeping up with cities our size.
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, I would want that too. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is unfortunately, what usually happens is these kids graduate from medic school, from fire school, and they get where they can start in, and they are always applying for the bigger cities. They're always doing it. So that's, I think, a lot of the turnaround with that. And I don't think you're going to be able to change that unless, I mean, honestly, I don't know how. But from my experience and from what I've seen happen with my own
Yeah.
husband,
I
that's
know
what they do.
staffing's a challenge in all market, everywhere you go. You know, people are hiring across the board, but I just know with not having the facilities, you know, and our pay, I know that both of our chiefs and our staff has done a phenomenal job with the STEP program that was designed. That's incredible, the code adjustments, but I think it's time to really put a lot of, you know, faith back into our staff and the staff that we have. I think that's just where we need to go.
Well, and I think one thing, and you mentioned cities our size, but we haven't been presented with the compensation comparisons with other cities our size. It's just we're losing people to bigger
I
departments.
think they've done that before.
Not in this
Yeah.
budget presentation.
Not
That
as part of
hasn't
this
been-
budget presentation.
That hasn't
yeah.
been part of it. And so we really don't know what other cities our size are paying. But in addition to that, and that's why I talked about, okay, we want a brand new police department, brand new fire department, brand new city hall. We're talking about public works, maybe another fire department. We're talking about raises across the board. We're talking about 10% increase in full-time employees. In my budget at home, if I'm going, okay, guess what? The groceries bill's going up, the gas bill's going up, things are going up. We need to prioritize spending. We've got to treat this budget like it's our own, because it's affecting everybody else's budget that lives within our city. And so sometimes we just have to choose. We might have to stagger things out or to look at the timing, but we can't do everything all at once in the climate, in the financial climate that we find ourselves in now.
Our facilities, the way I understood it, you know, this isn't a new topic. The new facility for public works and fire and police, you know, I think it was on this council's decision, I believe 3.5, 4 years ago, way before my time on the council. But it was, you know, it was a great plan, if I remember right, and hearing about it in the news and the agendas and different things. But I believe it was voted down for you know, whatever reason, I can't remember. But you know, the interest rates back then was a lot better than they are now, and all of our price of goods have tripled. So if we could have done it back then, you know, we wouldn't be here talking about it. But so if we're talking about delaying that project again, we're just going to be in the same boat 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road.
Right. And not necessarily. We had our bond attorneys come in and present us that if we kept it under $15 million, that we'd be able to do those without raising taxes. And so those are things to keep in mind. But all of those, there's a limitation on the budget, and I know there's a limitation on our people. I found my notes from the last meeting, and according to Zach's presentation, just our city bill alone, so forget the other entities, if we leave the mill levy the same, that's an additional $183 per year on the average household just from the city portion of the tax bill. So that's what we're getting ready to vote on right now. If we want to increase the average house
$180 a year.
$180 a year just.
Well, that
just
was
for
on the house that
city.
was in River Falls, which was a little bit more than the average, but it's going to be around that 150,
Just the
180.
city portion, yeah. And so, and then again, if every entity follows suit, that would be about $850 a year.
So that's where the $17 came from, give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was 15, 14, and 12. That's what it was.
the difference between.
I believe that's what it was.
I think that's right. Was difference between no change, half mil, full
Right.
mil.
Did anyone else have any questions or?
I'm gonna make a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
We have public in here that are wanting staffing in the North Fire Station. Should be a priority, absolutely should be a priority. And if we can strike a pen, vote yes, we can have 3 new firefighters as soon as the chief can get one of them. We're paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $18,000 a month for trailers for police department. Is that correct? Is that the number? What
Not quite
number
that
did you
high,
give
no.
me? I asked about a year ago, what are we paying for those trailers a month to upkeep them?
It's $4,800 a year. I thought. Yeah.
A year?
We don't rent any of our.
Well, I know, but what does it cost to operate those
Oh,
buildings?
just the general operation of
gotcha.
facilities?
And
I mean,
We don't want.
our facilities, that's what you're talking about. those
Yeah.
kinds of things?
to run them. I mean, you're sitting in trailers. And, you know, you're depending on the Wyandotte County courthouse to house prisoners when, you know, there could be an option where you could have holding cell in here, providing you get the employees that you need. So, you know, I mean, I agree with Greg Scott that, you know, yeah, $183 is a chunk of money. My taxes on my house went up 30% this year. And I live on something about the size of a postage stamp. And yeah, I complain about that, but it's not Edwardsville that's doing that. It's the Wyandotte County entities that are doing that. So
Well, it's been us every year. We've increased our taxes every year.
we have.
We've
lowered
decreased our mill levy every year for the last
But the
7
bill
years.
to our
About 5 years.
residents.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like
You
to
go
call for the question.
Go, I would like it. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You can go.
Well, that's okay. I'd like to call for the question.
Okay.
You have to vote on the call. So what he's saying is
I'm
he
sorry.
wants to end the discussion.
Okay.
So that's.
So we don't get to, we don't get
No,
to make our, oh.
you can make
No,
a
you
comment
Okay.
still. You can still have a discussion. So we'll, yeah, you can still make a question. You can still have a discussion if you have a comment.
My only comment is we can take care of all of the city's requests with all 3 options.
At different levels, yes.
Correct. While still providing a little bit of relief to our citizens. That's my only comment.
So we have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
What's the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. She asked to repeat the motion. That was my fault. So the motion for this one's leaving the mill levy the same as last year,
At what?
which is
41.692.
option A, 4.692. That was the 183-ish.
Okay. So, you ready? Yeah. No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
And I vote on this.
No.
Okay, then veto.
So you have to override it.
What's that?
She proposed a veto as the mayor.
I would not, I couldn't, I can't see approving anything less than a full mill reduction to our residents when they are struggling to pay their bills at this point. The 1 mill reduction is 40.692. That gives the staff the 6% increase they've requested. That gives the staff the full-time employees that they've requested. If they need a little extra room, we can move that public works out or to part-time, but we have other options in front of us. I don't see sticking it to our residents with option A. I just can't do it.
Point of order. Council, can you read us the statute on vetoing?
Power of the mayor, section 1.0.005. The mayor shall preside at all meetings of the governing body, and shall have a tie-breaking vote for all questions and members present or divided. The mayor shall
does this action count as an ordinance?
It's a resolution.
The resolution was to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
We've already adopted that
Yeah.
resolution.
Right.
I had it here.
Budget discussion,
Right.
close the hearings.
Which is not so the action would be to sign to approve the certificate to certify the fiscal year 2024 budget, which is not strictly speaking an ordinance of the city. And I'm kind of directing this towards the attorney as to the interpretation of that.
So are you proposing C? Is that what you're proposing?
At the very least.
Then I'm seeing something here is that the city council reverses mayor's veto of housing voucher. So I don't know what that's about.
It was probably an override. So typically, after a veto, it takes a supermajority. So 4 yes votes to override a veto. Potentially. So would we just vote again, or do we need another motion?
Yeah, I think we should
Of
wait.
course.
Well, the council has legislative power. The mayor has veto power.
So, the case law and CSA development that 303, this is the statute that provides for the mayor of a council of the city shall have the power to sign or veto any ordinance passed by the council within the period of 3 fourths override requirement. But there's a 1956 case that talks about the mayor having to sign or veto appropriation ordinance. So I do think that what's happening here is appropriation is subject, obviously, a specific statutory process that requires an affirmative legislative vote of the council. This case had to do with mandamus to become mayor to sign salary form. I guess for purposes of tonight's discussion, there's the option to be, if there is consensus, well, if there's 3/4 override. But if there is not 3/4 override, then the question would be, do you want to pass some additional legal, officially, the city attorney to determine whether the
abundance of caution, I would say that I can't rule out that the mayor has the power of veto, even though the Constitution appropriation or an ordinance and a resolution of the appropriation ordinance drive against law would be similar to what we're doing tonight. But if you want me to amend it, do it before you pass it.
So if we want to move forward tonight, options are to override the veto, which they would just need 4 votes to do, or make another motion that would have a chance of passing.
I would like to make that motion that you research it and get back with us on an opinion.
I think the question I would ask was, is this appropriation ordinance? Which the mayor specifically doesn't have the power to veto.
I think you said I did have the power to veto an appropriation ordinance.
If, ordinance may be passed over the mayor's veto or may become effective without the mayor's signature. Those are the specific ordinance.
Yeah, it can pass over. It just needs the supermajority.
Yeah, that's where we're at tonight to see otherwise or.
So is what you would be determining is whether the budget certificate is defined statutorily or can be defined statutorily as an ordinance.
Whether an action of the council approving the budget, which would be frankly subject to official notice as a written document, whether that would fall under statutory power.
Mr. Nate, if we played this out, and if that motion was vetoed with her veto, and so if there's another motion on the table, like a half or B or C, and if that was, seconded and then voted on,
Yeah, that could proceed. There's a motion on the floor right now, hasn't been seconded. That motion, I think, would be also to table this discussion until I could opine on this question. If that's either not seconded or a substitute motion is offered at this time for B, C, B and a half, however you want to do it. That's certainly within the board.
And I make a motion to do option
Wait,
C,
we have a motion on the floor, correct?
Motion on the floor.
but it wasn't second.
We haven't had a chance for somebody to second it.
The motion on the floor is to table discussion pending further review of the city attorney on the mayor's veto power in this instance.
Okay, and so if someone wants to second it, we'll second and vote. If nobody seconds it, then we can have a substitute motion trying to resolve the budget issue this evening while we still have our finance guy on staff. Okay, there being no second,
Second.
we can, okay. So now so you're voting to put it off until,
I want a good legal opinion. I can't listen to what he's saying right now and know what's going on. I've never gone through a veto in this town in my life.
okay, so the motion and the second is to get legal opinion, put off the budget until the next council meeting, correct?
Or special meeting.
Yeah, I think it's just be to table action. So from a timeline
Table
perspective,
action.
we do need to adopt the budget no later than ideally the next city council meeting to
That's fine,
statutorily
yeah.
meet the timeline. So we're a little bit ahead of the game and have a little bit of wiggle room from a timeline perspective, but we need to have the budget adopted by, I believe, September 20th.
September 20th.
to meet statutory requirements. So some opinion would need to, additional discussion to that effect would need to be held before that.
You coming back for that meeting?
Yeah, I think I might be busy actually at that meeting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll? No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Okay, so now we can hear a different motion.
I make a motion for option C.
So that would be, again, to certify the budget at a mill levy of 40.692.
Yes.
Second.
Further discussion? Go to vote. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No. Madam Mayor, council members make a motion to adopt option B, a half meal reduction.
No second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I've never seen anything like this before.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
No.
No.
Yes.
It is hard.
Zach,
Yes, sir.
what happens if we adopt option B and eliminate the public works altogether? Does that get us another fireman?
I think option B would give us some, really what we're doing it from an action point of view is granting the expenditure authority, the overall expenditure authority of the city. So not individual staffing decision. Now, obviously that plays a part into what that authority is going towards, but option B, the half mil reduction, we could, so to answer your question, if we were to just flat out eliminate the public works position, then it, probably yes. And so it does give us some room to play around with that staffing level and see what we can propose.
Chief,
I don't want to
said a
count it
mill?
out entirely, but without
One mill?
having sitting down and being able to provide analysis.
We can do 1 mil. The proposal's half a mil.
The half mil under B, and then a half with the public works person, we cut it out, right?
so that would technically make this 1 mil.
Expenditure.
You're only reducing the tax bill by half.
So it would be. oh,
Which is what we've normally done in the past 7 years.
We've done more than that.
Yeah, we've done.
Right, there has been more.
Has it been?
Yes.
And it's also the question of, do we fund it starting in January? Do we fund it starting at half year? So
So we can talk about another way to get to a full mill if this doesn't pass. But right now we're halfway through a vote on
Yes.
option B,
Yeah.
the half a mil.
No.
Yes.
Three no? Yeah. Yes.
I went yes.
2 yes, 2 fails 3-2.
3-2 is fair.
Wow.
A, B, and C.
So
Option
what
B it
one
is.
one option that was being discussed was potentially setting the mill. I don't want to. I could be wrong, but I think what we were talking about is if we do a full mill, is a hybrid between B and C. A full mill decrease, setting the mill at 40.692. But what was the question about the public works?
Eliminating it.
Eliminating the public works.
And the 3
Move it to
firefighters.
part-time.
Yeah. 3
Yeah.
firefighters.
in the 3. So that would be another way we could set the mill at the 40.692 with a 1 mil reduction.
But you're not adding the firemen though.
Yes, we are.
Are we? Okay.
Yes.
So I think all we're doing is really setting the mill. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're setting the mill levy tonight, and then you guys can make the adjustments for the
That we want.
staffing.
For clarification, B is a stagger of firefighters, only 2. Okay, so the third one's hired in the next year. Supplemental fire time people, which we've done historically. That cutting out the public works altogether, or do we say part-time?
No, all together.
Altogether?
Yes.
No?
That's what I heard.
Chantel, can you go back to that slide that shows the staffing models? I think that's what we're kind of hung up on.
There it is.
There you go.
Suppose between occupancy and C is a hybrid of that. Okay. You're saying a 1 mil drop. Working math over here. So in the 1 mil drop, elimination, complete elimination of the public works position.
And adding the fire position. Switching that.
Okay, adding back in one more form or another throughout the year, we're going to hire 3 firefighters in 2024.
Yes.
Did you make that motion?
No. Well, I mean.
Oh, nobody made a
Nobody made it
motion.
yet.
That we were just.
Waiting on Zach.
Okay.
Just my quick math, I don't think we can do that with a full mill reduction.
No.
Just
I knew
that's
we
it.
could do with half.
I think with the half mill, it's right on the line. I know.
He says that you can't do that. But what you're going to exceed is your 15 to 18% cash reserves if you do.
Right. That's really that barrier of can we or can't we? It's just trying to maintain the adopted financial policy of keeping our reserves at 15%.
And that might be 14.8.
And so could that be just another, instead of doing, if we drop public works, do 3 full-time fire, but stagger the staffing to equal 40.192. Like, to just figure out the staggering, like you.
Yeah, we would put that 6 months plus.
Mhm.
We hire 1 quarter, 2 3/4, right? In the sense of staggering those out, it's possible. Again, we're presuming full pay and benefits, 100% of the maximum benefits as well. We may not get that usually.
And still hopefully get grant
Yeah, the grant.
approval.
We're not going to get the grant if we lower the mill. I'm telling you, it's not coming. Well, I did the math with our former city manager. Met with him because I did the math myself, and I saw that we could use option B, eliminate the public works person, and put the firemen in for 3 firemen and stagger them quarter 1, 2, and 3. And it
So
worked.
stagger the 3.
1,
So
2, and
I
quarter.
think-
1, 2, and 3.
I think that can be accomplished.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
exactly what it said.
Right.
That's
That's exact-
in my mind, the math would work.
It will work.
Cash flow protecting at the front. Getting into the year, we'll see where our revenues are. And if you haven't hired them, you have an opportunity to say, slow down. So,
Right. Okay, I'll make that motion. Adopt option B, eliminating the public work personnel, adding a fireman to be hired in quarter 1, 2, and 3.
And to clarify, Councilman Bishop, is that at the 1 mil decrease or
Half
0.192?
option. It's half. It's 41.192.
Okay, then
That's so yeah. That
why did we eliminate public works?
that's his motion.
that's
Okay.
it's really just to maintain that fund balance option. I think keeping just quick math, keeping the public works position as budgeted would put us below that 15% threshold with the addition of the staffing of fire.
Okay, so it's another option B, eliminated public works and then 1, 2, 3 full-time staff fire. Right?
Yes.
And I think it would give us staff an option at second quarter, third quarter to see how revenue has been performing. And maybe we're in the position, because we budget pretty conservatively on some of our revenue line items. We don't want to be in a position where we are overpromising from a revenue perspective. But in the past, we tend to, perform above those trend or those estimates. So if at quarter 3, mid-year next year, we may be in the position where we are making a recommendation to, we've already adopted the budget at whatever mill levy, but and under the assumption that we would not fill a public works position, but revenues have been what they are, and we expect them to increase whatever, and maybe at mid-year we're making that recommendation. And that
But
gives
no
us
matter.
option B. I think gives us that room to look at it.
But no matter where we are financially, our residents are still only getting a half a mil decrease. So
Now, there's also too, I don't want to lose in the conversation, but, we really briefly touched on the utility funds, and previously we had talked about, we've got certain contractual increases in both sewer and trash that we're going to experience, and we could use ARPA funds to control that at a value of up to a little bit more than $500,000 monetarily, depending on somebody's sewer level, or if they're using sewer at all. At the very minimum, more than $250,000, 0.3 mils would be the impact that we would recommend ARPA adjusting for our trash bill, which applies just to residents and every household and does not provide specific tax relief to commercial properties. So within this, there are other, outside of the mill levy, these other kind of, wallet protection efforts that we're looking at that aren't solely reliant on mill levy adjustments. So all that to say, if option B, 41.192, a $500,000 decrease, were to move forward, there's still the option of monetarily making the impact on residents, what they're paying out in utility fees that would equate up to 60% of a mill.
but in all fairness, there's no guarantee that will happen or what's going to happen, and we need to keep with the specific budget, and our residents deserve to know what we're actually doing with our.
Well,
with our general
those
fund
decisions
bills,
are
so.
on this body as well. So if they wanted to do that, if you wanted to do that during the ordinance when we adopt rates, that's certainly within your guys' purview. But that's,
Yeah,
I don't want to put the cart
it's
above
a
the
separate
horse.
conversation. So
So
we have a motion, no second at this point. Did you?
I know.
So the
And
motion
then
would be to
$500,000.
adopt the $500,000 decrease, total mill levy of 41.192 mils, with staggered of all three fire department personnel, and at present elimination of the addition of a full-time public works.
So option B with what you just said.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Yeah. Any other questions on this one? Because I feel like we could do options that what was suggested with option C and just do a full mill drop, but we probably don't have the math on that yet. So we have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Veto. And a veto.
Well, I'd like to go back to council and say, hey, find out what's going to happen, and we'll take it up next. We have time, right? We have one more meeting.
Now, while he is looking that up, I think that one thing that we were kind of right on the edge of is and maybe we can do the math on this, is option C offers a full mill drop if we take out the public works employee for this time and looked at this, because this is what I thought was being suggested, staggered the fire departments. I feel like that's a real hybrid between B and C. It pulls the public works, but then it staggers the fire department employees enough to offer that full mill decrease for our residents. Is that something that is doable
at the 1 mil,
at the 1 mil reduction?
yeah, there's risk to it, of course, but let's think about somewhat a common sense world. Can we hire a firefighter day one? No. Can we hire 3 of them day one? No. Are we gonna hire a PD officer? No. So some of those, you may see revenue streams that are higher. We may have these delays in the hiring. You will have turnover. Right now, the expectation is 100% of all the people will be there. So could we experience some lower level of expenditures just because of the normal course of activities? It's possible. Could we fit the 1% or the 1 mil decrease in? We've considered it in several ways, and we think we can. We certainly built a hybrid of A, B, and C of that, with the intent that we're targeting the 15% or above. That is a council policy. And with a 1 mil drop, you're not bringing the revenues in that the other two options. So you have to make up that difference. So the expectation is, even though there's some common sense world stuff out there, in a sense, you're budgeting to spend into your cash reserves, which may push your cash reserves under the 15%.
Well, and that's what I would just expect our city manager to stagger the hires to keep our budget where it needs to be. And that's what I was suggesting for the hybrid between B and C is, if anyone would want to consider making a motion, pulling the public works position for this year, but then allowing the city manager to stagger the 3 full-time fire, keeping our reserves where they need to be based on our financial policy. So that would be like, if anyone would want to make a motion, that would be like a hybrid BC motion.
I would make that motion. Yeah.
Zach, are you still crunching those numbers?
I'm sorry, what are we doing? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out, could we fit in a 1 mil reduction, eliminate the public works position, and then add a third staggered fire department hire? Is
Yeah.
that accurate? Okay.
And then just leaving the discretion to the city manager to make sure we're staggering it in such a way to keep our general fund where it needs to be.
So if we don't hire them in April, maybe it could be June, right? Those kind of things. I mean, those are possibilities. And essentially what we're saying in C is that we are, in lieu of the public works position, we're hiring a third firefighter in the same year. That's what you're saying. Those monies are different, of course. Retirement, those sorts of things. But again, is it possible? Yes. Do we have a scenario that kind of fits in there? Yes. And we were close again to that 15.3, 15.12, somewhere in there of our cash reserve policy. We may teeter that line a little bit, but staggering the hires could mean just because we fund a position to start Q2, for example, maybe we're not ready to hire them. Maybe we could delay them based on the performance of the budget at the time. And include maybe having to wait till Q4 for the third firefighter. Those are things that we can do. The staff will control those things.
And we have a motion, but I think Zach's doing the math on it to figure it out.
This is all real macro level. It'd be real close to your 15%.
Okay.
Yeah, my
that's
right.
here says 14.8 to 14.9 are going to percent. Somewhere right in there.
And again, that's all assuming they're hired right on January 1, right on April 1, right on July 1. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of variables in there we can't really control for. But
And what salary are you using?
essentially the 88,000 value.
They don't start at that.
No.
Right.
Benefits. So you got
Right.
salary.
No, I get it.
I'm factoring all that
That's
in.
the full package.
Right.
21 to 28% on the other end.
And is that the highest level of benefits?
That's the family level of benefits, right? Which is
Second.
what most people have.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's try this one. Will the clerk please call roll?
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure it's, so we're considering certification of the budget at option C, 41.192 mils.
Option C, but it's a hybrid, eliminating public works, adding fire to be staggered. 3 full-time fire to be staggered to allow the general fund to remain at or above the 15%. Okay. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
I would suggest at this point, there's more work to be done. There is no veto power. You already have a vote.
Okay. So we'll table it. We need a motion to table it.
So you've got a vote, 3-2, and there's a veto. So the question then becomes, related, but becomes whether you had that authority or not. That's what it's going to answer, correct?
Yes, and I think it would be helpful to rescind any previous votes which one passed first in time, get the second one to replace the first one. All of that, all based on the fact that we didn't have conclusively. Would recommend that there be at least a consensus, not a vote, that all previous votes and actions on the 2024 budget would be rescinded pending legal review and recommendation.
So for someone to make that motion, could they just say so moved?
So moved.
Second.
We have that motion in the second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So if the veto stands, do we need to give direction on something to bring back next meeting? How is this handled? Because we have no, if that's true, then we have no
Well, I think I don't want to,
budget.
I'm sure somebody,
I was asking our attorney.
Sure.
That's not my
Yeah.
problem.
Right.
You can, I think.
Well, we need to be prepared because that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's the other question tonight, is if we can wait 2 weeks or not, if you want to have a work session at some point in the meantime, now would be the time to decide to do that, since you're in open meeting. If you don't want to have a work session, if there's kind of a firmly divided 3-2, and there is veto power or not veto, there isn't veto power, then there may be no more consensus building to have because you've got the votes. But if there is room for consensus, it always probably is in the city's best interest for more agreement to occur than less.
So I think
well
just,
said.
just to clarify, so we rescinded all of the votes that happened tonight. So at the next meeting, it kind of starts fresh because we rescinded everything that happened tonight. So it would start with a brand new motion at the next meeting.
Just to be clear that we didn't just pass 4 conflicting budgets.
Yeah, so we start fresh next.
With the same information.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want more information, now would be the time to press that.
Yeah. I feel like, and I could be wrong and y'all let me know, that it was somewhat consensus to potentially look at dropping the public works and see if we can maybe find something of common ground with, and then not to say it's not needed and won't be added later.
Yeah, I think by and large,
Well,
that's the
speak up if
consensus
I'm
I
not.
got was with the elimination of public works, what staffing levels does that open up from a fire perspective?
Yeah.
I think is generally what has been discussed.
Well, I don't want to step on CE's toes. He's not here, but originally in the original time, when we hired Public Works Director, he was supposed to be a working Public Works Director. Remember that? Yeah. And the only one I've seen working is Dusty.
So now
the
do we
field.
need a motion to table this discussion to the next meeting?
I make a motion to table this discussion to the next meeting.
Second.
Now we have a motion in the second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 So, now I think would be appropriate to go ahead and finish up our public comments from earlier that we had to pause. If, Chief Matthews, do you feel like that would be a good time for our public comments? Actually, that wouldn't be a terrible idea.
I think maybe
Let's
we
get
can take
the
a break
comments.
after the public hearing.
Yeah, let's do the public comments.
Because they've been waiting a long
Right.
time.
They've been
So we actually, I promised
Richard?
Mr. Kip that he would be the first up because he was at the podium when I cut him off. Please remember, as we begin our public comments again, state your name, your address. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll give you the quick signal when you're winding down on your time. And just to remember, if you ask questions, we'll try to follow up with you, but we can't respond from here because we can't add agenda items. We will definitely appreciate you being here, and we want to hear what you have to say for us.
Next.
You ready?
Yes, thank you.
Chris Kipp, 720 South 110th Street. Our home there in 95, so whether it's 96, so being resident for 27 years. Back to the fire station EMS location. We've already damaged a great residential neighborhood with a large industrial footprint, which is negatively affecting our home values and quality of life. Why would we consider expanding that impact when we have so many other good choices for a better city maintenance facility in another location in Edwardsville? Besides the additional runoff issues, environmental impact, increased noise, and the present eyesore that would be expanded, it should be returned to the original function as a fire station EMS facility. Hopefully we have the wisdom knowing what we can do, but should we? So that's my thoughts on the north facility. I guess just one other general comment from a budgeting standpoint is you have to be a little cautious with, I agree with this general public sentiment of reducing the mill levy, but you also sacrifice your opportunities for those grants when you do that.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to share with us tonight?
Hi, everybody. Joe Studi. I live at Lake Forest. I own property at 910 South 110th. Own the property since about 2019. All I can really do is just add to what everybody else is saying. The runoff, the concern I have with the runoff, I have the biggest pond at the end of the watershed. My concern is how you store the salt and how much runoff there's going to be all the way down that whole watershed, make it to my pond. That's a big issue. But the other thing that concerns me a lot is that we have a pretty evenly divided population of people north of K32 and south of K32. But you have a whole lot better protection for the people south than you do on the north side. So that's why I say that converting it back to a satellite fire station / EMS location would make the most sense. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Charlie Nicolay, 614 South 110th Street. I've lived on that street in 2 different residences since 2006. I actually grew up on this street. When I was a child, I do remember it being a fire station, EMS station, and whatnot. And now I have 2 young children, and my house is actually one of the first houses the watershed starts on this runoff. So salt and the barrels and the IBC totes and buckets and all that stuff that's stored outside comes right across my backyard and actually ends up in Mr. Kip's pond. So that would be one of the things that I would like to see cleaned up, but I do mirror the sentiment that I would like to see it reverted back to what it was. Thank you.
Dave Johnson, 1205 South 102nd Terrace. So I just have comments about the road thing. I'm encouraged to hear the council talking about roads. Been working on them, but 102nd Street still a safety hazard from K32 to Edge Hill. So and then the information that was put out about the subdivisions being paved since 2015. Well, the Edge Hill subdivision was resurfaced in 2015. And so we found out that the subdivision wasn't built right. So it needs a full depth repair, because that $70,000 the city spent on Edge Hill subdivision, it was a waste. If anybody drives on Edge Hill or the adjacent roads, 102nd Terrace, 103rd Street, they're terrible. The whole subdivision is falling apart. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And as far as the North Fire Station, I vote for having an ambulance there. I don't think that anybody is like somebody is talking about the trains and an ambulance getting caught and somebody's having a heart attack on the north side. I don't know what to say about the public works thing, but it needs to be an ambulance there. Maybe it could be a dual function system. I don't know. But these guys talking about the runoff and stuff, so I don't know anything about that. And then sidewalks. Councilman Malott was talking about sidewalks along K32. Well, I want to say thank you for that. And you know, the crosswalk at K32 stoplight is horrible. It lands onto a concrete landing. So that is in dire need of being turned into a actual functioning crosswalk along sidewalks, maybe all the way to Jackson's. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. So thank you.
Thank you.
John Sauer, 603 High Street. I think some of my neighbors brought it up earlier, but about this tree trimming service that's up on High Street. I found out that they've been operating for a year with no, city didn't even know they were there. And so I brought it to the attention. And then I was told they would give them 10 days to either comply or put in for to get legally done, or they would start fining them. Well, they waited the 10 days and the guy put in to get legal to go through the process. And now he's still there, still operating with no permits, nothing. And then it goes through the procedure of going to the planning board and then coming to you guys. And to me, that just seems backwards. You know, if you get caught not doing right, you know, to just say, okay, go ahead and not do right until we decide. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm totally against it. I live right across the street from this deal. I mean, they're blowing dust up. Kids, you know, you've heard some of the other stuff, but I just hope you guys, and I wish any of you would come up and look at this situation, because to run this, you know, in a residential neighborhood. And I might say, you know, John McTaggart, our previous mayor, that's how this come to my attention. Was I was talking to him and he said, you know, he just closed on his house today. And he said, he was telling me, he says, no one can no longer put a commercial business there at his house because it's a residential neighborhood. And I'm like, well, if they can't do it, you know, nobody else can put one there. There shouldn't be one anywhere else up there. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn Picknick, 1201 South 102nd Terrace, Edwardsville, Kansas. Mr. Johnson's right. Our streets are a mess. They've been a mess for years. You guys come in and fixed them, and they're gone again. Now, I'd like somebody to come and look at our drainage problem. We got a bad drainage problem in that area. It's been there for, I've been in that house for 43 years, and for 43 years I've had to weed eat probably 60 foot of that ditch. And I'm 77 years old, and I'm getting to the point where I can't do it anymore. And if I can't do it, guess what's going to happen? Weeds are going to be so tall in that ditch that I won't even be able to see my neighbor sitting here. And you ask Cecil, how many times have I been out there weeding that ditch and sweat pouring off of me? So it'd be nice if somebody just come in our neighborhood and just take a look and see what is in there. We've had kids play in that ditch. We've had water cover our streets where people have actually stopped because there's a culvert pipe that goes over and it's flooded and nobody can drive through it. Now that's when we've had big rains and stuff, which we haven't had in a long time, but there's a river that actually runs down through that whole area. So please come and look. Okay. Thank you for everything, though.
Well, I just want to jump up here and just say I forgot a couple things too.
Okay, if
Going
you
back
try to
to-
make it kind of quick, since we have 3
Yeah,
minutes per person.
Since
but I think
the
you have about a minute
K32 is
left.
just 2 items. the K32 thing, the flashing yellow light at the left turn, that street light needs modernized. I mean, they have one at Nettleton and K32. So, I mean, the stoplight needs modernized. And I had something else on there, but I can't think of it. So I'll let somebody talk when it comes to me.
Lane Cooper, 1535 South, 104th Terrace. I want to go back to the earlier conversation tonight and discussion regarding the levy and the budget and our cash reserves. In doing that, we do have another form of revenue that we might want to take another look at, and that's in the form of our special sales tax. Right now, as I remember, the council has voted, it's now a resolution that's going to be on the November ballot, to continue the half-cent special sales tax. And that equates to about $448,000 a year, am I right?
I think it was a little over 600,000, I thought.
Okay, I'll take that too. Okay. As I recall from our previous city manager, our sales tax overall right now is 9.5.
Mm-hmm.
And we're actually a pinch below other cities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. And with the half-cent sales tax, it'd be 9.5.
No, we're at 9 now.
Okay.
With the half cent, and we will continue to
Okay.
be 9 if that.
Okay. Because what I understood, and my point remains the same, and that even sounds better, is if we're a quarter of a point below other cities, it's not unreasonable to go back and ask taxpayers, I'm a taxpayer, for an additional quarter of a point on that special sales tax. I like the idea of sales tax. It's essentially a consumption tax. It doesn't help you out at the grocery store, but you have a choice whether or not to buy a bag of chips, as opposed to being levied and having, as a citizen, no control over your levy, having essentially no control over your appraisal, but a consumption tax you personally can have control over. So I submit to you that if you rethink or reevaluate what you'll ask the taxpayers for in November, I'm suggesting go ahead and bump that up to a 0.75% special sales tax, and you would have whatever that comes out to be. At this point, that's probably now $300,000 more in revenue next year. That loosens up a couple of things. One is your hiring practices. If positions come in at just below $100,000, that's 3 positions right there. Or if you want to talk about your cash reserves, that'll clearly keep you above your minimum of 15%. So that $250,000, that $300,000 will go a long ways towards giving you those latitudes. We could hire people with that money. It'll keep you right, but you could hire people with other money. One way or another, it's more revenue. So we could use that, and it would give us some options. So that's $300,000. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make one point. This is the open session for the public.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Chuck Nicolay, 825 South 110th Street. Right off the bat, the public comments were available to make, and nobody made a comment before you entered your budget discussions and started taking votes. It'd be a lot better if you guys would have your discussions first so we get a little bit more informed, and then ask for public comment. And you might come up with something like this gentleman offered and be able to solve the problem sooner. Thank you.
Carolyn Turner, 1208 South 102nd Terrace. I have a question, maybe somebody can answer it. So it's my understanding that the EMS, it was just ambulance only up there on the north side, is that correct?
Yes.
And then that was operated by MAST?
Yes.
Is there any way that can be contracted out again to them?
They're not in Kansas City
We
anymore.
can't really
They're not
respond.
here.
Well,
No.
we can't respond from up here, but if
Mhm.
if you want, we do want to answer your questions if you have those. So you could email. Is that okay to email Chief and then get those answered? Because I don't want to take your time with us
That's fine.
speaking, but we'll get those
Okay.
answered for you.
That's all I want to know.
Okay. Would you leave your email address with Chantal so we can follow up with you on that?
Oh, you ain't-
Thank you.
You don't want one gone anywhere. They're dissolved in.
Okay. Did anyone else have a public comment they'd like to? Sure.
Hey folks, I'm Eric Barnhart. Everybody just calls me EB. I just want to say I echo that gentleman. That was my concern. I was like, wait, these numbers aren't the same, so that's why I was confused a little bit earlier. And I think that would be really helpful to all of us because I'm the rookie. I'm from 710 River Drive, and I've only been here just 2 years. So I'm like, all these folks have grown up around here. It's been great to go back to the Midwest and see this planted community. It's been a delight. I know a little bit about just my neighbor. He's a certain sergeant who, yeah, he speaks very highly of you, sir. So I'm really glad to see that you stepped in. I just want to say, man, I am glad I don't have your job because I hear, and y'all are clearly very invested in this community. This, as much as it may have been a struggle for y'all tonight, made my heart smile to see and hear the different perspective because you're all so close right now. Like there's just this little line that if y'all can get consensus on, we're going to be there. But it's like, I think we all are just so excited about the idea of just even 3 more guys getting on for it sounds like there's a ton of support for it behind you. So we're real close. I just want to speak a word of encouragement as someone who's lived in Miami, Florida for 12 years, lived in Atlanta and grew up in a small town in Eastern Iowa to come back to this community and see this little town. The thing I think we just need to figure out is how do we get Wyandotte from just, $100 to $800. We know where the difference is, don't we? Yeah. And I'm not even kidding when I say maybe we should have a public hearing about how do we figure out how to get those guys off our backs. Y'all are doing a great job here, and I commend you. Thank you.
No, you don't.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public comments for this evening. Thank you guys for sticking around for that part. Sorry to have cut it off early. We definitely wanted to take time to hear you, but for the statutory reasons, we had to start that public hearing right at 6:15. Just taking notes, so I have to find my agenda again. Next item on the agenda is item 6, consider authorizing the use of special sales tax funds for the purchase of the 2023 Grasshopper 335B72 mower from the Norris Equipment Company.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll handle this. He's absent today. Staff is asking for $12,733 from use of special sales tax funds to purchase a Grasshopper mower, a brand new one, from the Norris Equipment Company. This typically would go before the CPPS board prior to this request. However, if we waited that long, the meeting is scheduled out for next month. It costs us another $1,000 on the lowest bid and estimate. So we expedited this to come before you to ask for approval to spend the funds. It's well within that fund regulation, if you will, and the funds are adequately there. You can see that Director Goodall had several bids for this. This is exactly what they need. It's good use for this particular fund because it will be shared between the parks and the public works spaces, and they'll be out mowing. And if you noted from the background, there's a 2013 mower that's kind of a part-time in reserve mower. It doesn't really suit well for a second out mower, and they certainly need it. So we recommend the purchase through for $12,733 for a 2023 Grasshopper 72-inch mower. Sam, question.
How come Bad Boys didn't bid on this?
I don't know, and we had those in the past.
The last one we bought was a Bad
In the
Boy.
last 12 months, maybe,
Yeah.
it was a Bad Boy. I don't know why they didn't do
Huh.
this.
Those things are Bad Boys.
Madam Mayor, Council, I make a motion to approve the spend for the 2023 Grasshopper mower at $12,733.
There's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Right on. What if it's got
Item number 7 on the agenda, and I think we might work in just a quick break before we start the executive session. Consider a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2 for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship related to economic development projects in the city of Edwardsville.
Make that motion.
Oh.
I was watching everybody leave.
Okay, and then, so we do need a time for that. And so,
We recommend 30 minutes to start.
Who else going? Who's?
so returning at 7:10, does that give us time for a quick?
9:10.
Oh, for the love. Okay,
Yeah,
for 9:10.
That clock is wrong.
Okay, returning at 9:10. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Councilman Scott, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
yes.
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 Including our interim city manager and attorney and, what's Tyler's? Kutak Rock. Okay,
Is this an economic? Shouldn't Bradley be there? It's economic development? No.
all right.
He's built in enough time that we can take a break.
Okay, wonderful.
Quickly. You're in good. I think.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. 9:25. We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Adcock. Yes. Bishop. Yes. Milan.
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
You have to let them know by November 1.
Motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll? It's for
This
August
conference will now be recorded. This
minutes.
conference will now be recorded.
Adjusted or fixed for the minutes. We can ask.
I think there should be the minutes should definitely go back to where they were, and even verbatim. To me, it seems like the minutes were condensed down too much to not include a lot of the comments that were made on the dais up here. And, you know, and the way they're published, I think the way they go out on the internet is on YouTube. And I don't think that YouTube should be considered an official public record if something needed to be brought back up. And I guess I'm going to ask the attorney for that, because it's kind of a surprise to you that I'm bringing that up. But when I first saw the sample that was sent out, I did not like it. I think that some of the discussion that we have up here should be included in the written minutes that are kept on record here and not up in the cloud somewhere.
And so,
So I would like to see last week's minutes presented to us the way they were previously.
Yeah, this is.
I know that, but I don't know where that came from to condense them down like that, and I don't agree with that. I think we need to stay just the way we have been for the last 90 years.
and so, I don't know if
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
We haven't done that one.
What?
No.
I think he said 90 years, but that's.
Or more.
Okay, or more.
That's when he was first elected.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the agenda items, approval of the minutes, I don't know if we're adding an action item at this point to the meeting. Because we didn't have an agenda item for the discussion of the.
Well,
minutes,
I
but-
can, the minutes were reissued, and I will move to approve those minutes as they're presented. But what I'm suggesting is that they continue to be presented in the same fashion.
Okay.
So they're not changed around.
So we can have discussion as if people want to weigh in at their council time, but the motion is to approve the minutes.
Now,
Okay.
as presented.
As presented.
Like I always.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 And then I think maybe if council wants to weigh in on their thoughts on that, they can do that during their council comments. But we can't take action on it. We can just give feedback as you'd like. So, city manager report. Sorry, I was making sure I didn't
I
miss
have
anything.
nothing to add. Beyond our report that we provided, staff doesn't have any more comments.
Very good. Councilman Scott.
You're not gonna go with the guys and gals out there first?
Oh, I think he's just summing it up.
Huh?
Chief's covering it.
Oh,
We're just
okay.
making it simple.
Oh, okay, cool. I was really glad to see all the turnout that we had from the citizens. That was really nice to see that. I don't understand why, and it's probably just more processes, but I like when they can comment, but I don't like the fact that we can't comment back to them, when they're done talking. It just seems like they're talking to us, and like the mayor said, we can't speak. So is that a policy? Is that a procedure? Or, not that we'd want to comment on every time, but if somebody, if we have questions or if we have more dialogue that we need, I think it'd be beneficial if our citizens are coming in asking a question, and if we have an answer, or even ask you to follow up with whatever they said, then that kind of gives closure and they're getting input about, at least they were heard and the question's getting answered. If we don't have the answer up here, it's something to consider. I think that'd be beneficial if we could comment, if we can or could comment, when they're talking to us or asking questions. When we talk about, creating new sidewalks, I mentioned this earlier in our debate with the budget, just when we think about it, let's think about the maintenance of it, who's going to maintain it, who's going to take care of the snow, the removal, especially with the one that we're looking at from Williamson Farms going over to the Edwardsville Elementary. I understand that you guys had a good meeting with the superintendent, and hopefully that was beneficial. I'm sure you'll share with us how that went. I did find out, and maybe you have that information too, I believe is there 26 Edwardsville Elementary students that live in Williamson Farms?
I think he said that's
Does that sound right? Which I thought was very good information for us as we're planning and looking for sidewalks. And was there any more activity, any more discussions on the easement in Williamson Farm subdivision?
That easement exists. There's fencing on it. I think a little garden on one side, but we have that easement. It's well.
Has anybody talked to the either landowner yet?
We haven't moved. Part of what we need to do next is a little bit of engineering design, that is surveying, and we have a number of, we have hill crests and we have ebb and flows throughout the whole area. So I think the plan is, as it was sent back to us, is that we're soliciting requests for proposals and qualifications from engineering firms who can do the survey work, the design plan, and cost estimation. And that's really the next. Then we'll know more exactly where the sidewalk should be.
Yeah.
And where some of the crossings should be and that sort of thing. We can make decisions from there. So that's essentially, we plan on that easement as maybe a connector, but there may be more sidewalk there than just that little stretch. So there are a number of options.
I mean, would it be in our best interest to give those two landowners a heads up that we're looking at it? And
I think at some point, yeah, if we decide that we're going to actually,
I mean, just out of courtesy,
use it, we need to start talking to them.
because if they're seeing somebody back there measuring and taking pictures and doing this and doing that, I'd want to know what's going on in my backyard. So Zach, maybe you could stop by before you leave and help us out with that.
They're not in bed yet. They're still up.
I mean, he's got a friendly face. But I you know what I mean? I think it's just respectful to talk to landowners before we send a surveyor in there, just to give them a heads up. We know what we're looking at. We understand there's an easement. We're trying to figure out the best place for a sidewalk and into that. So I think that'd help. I've heard about the tree business off of High Street before, but I really think that we need to make sure, staff follows up with that comment and question. We had quite a few comments from the citizens about that. So if you've got that, Mark, on your plate, check it out, and then let us know what you find out, because it doesn't sound like they're compliant in the right spot. So.
Again, we have processes, and we want to honor those things, and, do we have the authority to cease and desist? We may, those sorts of things, but the process that we employ is that, could it be a business that could exist, have they gone through the proper channels, and now are they trying to go through those proper channels? So those are questions we're asking up front. We do know about it, we've known about it a little while.
Okay.
Those things, these are not instant, like a speeding ticket or something, you just give them a ticket,
Yeah.
it's done, kind of thing. These take a little while, so we're already on it.
Well, let's just make sure we communicate with the gal or the staff or the citizens that asked that question, kind of give them an idea of what we're doing. And I did forget about when I wrote this down about snow removal. I think we had that question last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was on Edwardsville Drive. They mow the right of way there, and there's a sidewalk there that doesn't get snow removal. And so, is that? I think that question that she asked, who's responsible for removing that snow? If the city is mowing it, are they responsible for moving the snow off the sidewalk? And I believe it's along, wasn't it Edwardsville Drive?
I think so, because she walks that 104th.
Yeah.
Technically, the city shouldn't even be mowing it, I don't think. That's the responsibility.
Well, it's the right of way.
We have to go back and research, but I believe this body made some action that we could move the requirement of the snow removal for property owners. So then that sidewalk, then that right away, then the responsibility of the property owner, then it would be responsible.
Well, I don't think we do any snow removal on sidewalks in the city. I could be wrong. No, I don't think so. We'll have to look more at it.
Discussion that.
Yeah.
We're putting that on the property owner, therefore it's either not going to be done at all or only certain sections.
Well, I think that's the question, because it's that right now they mow 8 feet past that sidewalk in some sections, on the property. So it's definitely, the sidewalk encompasses the mowing part. So in my opinion, it should encompass the snow removal, but it just never has. And I think when the snow's there, it's 0 degrees and I'm not walking, but I know there's people that do, and I'd hate for anybody to slip and fall, on that sidewalk because of our not doing it, or maybe we just don't know who's supposed to do it. So if he can find out for us, that'd be helpful. We had the comment about the special sales tax, so I really appreciate, your comment about that. And we did actually have a pretty good debate about raising that special sales tax. And I think the concern of the council was, we've had it at the 0.5%, and the concern of raising it 3/4, if it didn't pass, because it is such a valuable tool for all of us, and for reducing the tax, revenue, or tax burden on the citizens. So I think that's why we left it at the 0.5, and was hoping that would again pass through. But Zach and everybody's done a wonderful job on educating, our citizens about the special tax rate, or the special sales tax. And I think it is a great way of us purchasing equipment and items for, our different departments. And like Zach said, unfortunately, we can't pay wages with it, but we can pay a lot of things down from, and not take that money from the general fund. So I think it's a great tool, and hopefully we can, get that passed in the coming months. Comments, city council comments. I think that's all I have right now. I've got a lot on my mind here, but I think that's enough for tonight. It's kind of cloudy.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop.
I saw McEnany dropped off all their equipment up there by Purdue Speaker Road. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's going to be. Yeah.
They think they're going to get a better result, actually, and it costs less.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's all that. Yeah. So I'll do that.
The quality apples. A couple other projects have that good quality.
I would like to echo what Councilman Malott said about the minutes. I believe that we should go back to the old way. It just, YouTube is, when I found out, we upload that, we don't own that anymore. And YouTube any kid in their basement, mom's basement, can hack into that and say whatever they want. So I don't think that's a very, I don't think it's a sound decision for us to change to the abbreviated ones. So, because we do need that official minutes. So I'm sorry I left there leaving during the meeting. I'm on some new medicine, and I've got to go to the bathroom every half hour. So sorry. That's all. Just apologizing.
TMI.
I know. But look at this.
Councilman Malott.
Is it, Zach, you're a tech guy, is there some AI out there that could do the minutes?
Ooh.
There's certain criteria, services that you can contract with, really, the stenographer, for lack of a better term.
Would that
I
be
have not looked
something,
into AI.
I mean, I understand the 5 hours, and I know I wouldn't, earphones and typing, no, I would not want to do that whatsoever. And saying, I don't want this, or I'm not put, because that was brought up, I'll put this in, I won't put this in. I want everything in. And I think if you've got one person that can pick and choose what goes in those minutes, I don't know how that could be official. If there was,
We've been doing that for 8 years.
well,
Just so you know.
I'm just saying, and if it takes 7 hours, then it's going to take 7 hours. But maybe there's an option out there, artificial intelligence, or a company that maybe you could send the audio to them.
There is systems that can create a formal record for every word taken down, and that can be done through the audio. There is that AI. The issue is effective minutes. Minutes are generally not effective in the same sense of transcribed words. So there's going to be some
example, approve the minutes.
Yeah, it would be too much, but you can also, approval, I would say the consent agenda item is taken off the agenda like you do today, off the consent agenda. And put for separate discussion, I think that would be the idea, and then you discuss it, and you at that point, you can add or subtract the motion, what should be in the minutes, or direct staff, to prepare a summary of a certain subject matter that we discussed in either
Maybe I just show my age, I guess.
Well, no, I'm just
It's
saying.
been that way for so long.
The easiest thing to do is to be a pure transfer. And then you got every word. And that's probably the easiest thing stuff is. The problem is, I don't think AI is so eager to consigning to some cyborg, the discretion making, that you also get to decide exactly.
Police department has used transcription service for a number of years. The problem that we have is we have multiple speakers, and it's not clear to find who's speaking. So when we go to transcribe that, and we're talking over each other and doing these things, there's no way we could have ever gotten word for word. It would have to be so much more structured. It said Mark Bishop, and then, okay, then you speak. Pause, go to the next speaker. Using ours, that's the way it works when we have multiple speakers. They do that, that's what's possible. But it's word for word, it's certified document.
Well, I'm sorry I bring these kind of things up, but to me, it's almost not transparent when there's some information that's not on those minutes that I think should be on the minutes. I guess the simple way to do that would be say, I want to amend the minutes and then instruct staff to put this in it or whatever.
I think that most people are right. You don't have to write the minutes. Something do that, but it's just a general discussion. The board has to keep it on record.
Sorry about bringing that up, but that's what I do. I had a couple of things that I wanted to comment on. Autumn Fest is coming up in 4 weeks, 3 weeks. Would there be time, and tell me no if you want to, which you usually do anyway, to seal and stripe the community center parking lot and make it look a little more presentable? It looks horrible right now. Would there be?
Budgeted item.
But we need to maintain what we've got.
Whether we could put together some bid proposals and then award the bid and then have them come do the work.
If it could be done before then. And if not, it needs to be done anyway, regardless.
If there's business that we pursue that, we would certainly have to get on it right away.
I guess I would ask maybe with see if there's a consensus to do that.
Time though.
It just maybe the time frame, maybe.
Well, it's okay.
we're up against.
I think it should be done before winter sets in.
I think the striping piece of it said to be done within that time period, probably fall within the expenditure authority of the community.
There's a lot of residents tonight, which is just awesome that people show up and give us some ideas of the feelings of the public. A lot of times, I don't know the feelings of the public, and I form my own opinions, and sometimes it takes some convincing to get me to change. I wish that they could stay till the ends of the meetings where they could hear these comment portions, and that's part of the minutes that I'm kind of referring to. A lot of people would look online, and they'd be able to see, or they would try and get a hard copy of the minutes, and so you're kind of keeping some of those comments away from them. I think that maybe with some of these ARPA funds that we're talking about, that I never have really gotten a hard instruction manual on, we need to look at upgrading some of the sewers or installing some sewers in Edwardsville. Some people up High Street, I know there was an issue with that when we put the sewers along Edwardsville Drive. And I think up there where we're doing Second Street, where we're gonna be redoing that, maybe there'd be a way we could consider putting some sewers in back in there around the Methodist Church and all that. There's a place that we can hook up where it comes out of Williamson Farm. Just something to think about. You said something about the 102nd Street culvert up there. They're having little issues with that. I'm sure that they're gonna fix that, but is there a way maybe they could think about throwing a slurry mix in there for those sides, where you said the sides are?
Yeah, they have an action plan, getting our staff engineers to look at that design, it's sort of one slope. It's a round concrete, discharge tube.
We had the same kind of an issue on the bridge that goes into the park entrance.
I don't think the guardrail is alone. It doesn't look right, quite frankly, the way it's. So we initiated some discussions that hopefully I will be able to talk with tomorrow. The CE was gone today, so we're working on it.
Thank you for that. Zach, farewell on Friday. You will be missed more than you know. And I just would like to say that you have done an absolutely outstanding job for our city, for our community, for our friend, for everything. I don't know that I see anybody that can handle public as gracefully as you can, and some of the things that you do. But you are definitely appreciated, and I want to wish you all the best luck in the future.
Councilman Shriver?
I want to echo that. Zach, thank you so much. Not only served with you here in the council meetings on the CPPS board for years and helped come down with the Autumn Fest. You kids are adorable. I get to see your kids every year, but won't anymore. But anyway, want to wish you all the best of luck and thank you for everything you've done for the city. Leave some good notes. Chantel, doing a wonderful job. Yes, no, you are. You are. Not to take away from you, Zach, but thank you for everything you've done. You've gone above and beyond. I mean, absolutely. I don't know who would go check Chief Whittam. There was a lady. There were so many people. I will say that too. Loved seeing all the people here tonight, and everybody had different issues to talk about, or different ideas, different concerns. Jana Woodbury, I believe was her name, talked about some fire hydrants not working up there. Oh, so that's never been a working hydrant. Oh, okay.
Closest hydrant I have is in I Drive, so the house in question is about a 1,200-foot pool or 1,200-foot lake. Which is cool by the apparatus we have. We could definitely look at
So, but you've shed so much more light than she did, and that's fine. So if there were to be a fire, you have a hydrant close enough to use without. Oh, okay.
Directly behind truck sales.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Jana Woodbury also mentioned a couple of homes. 798, 800 North 7th Street.
I know those as well.
Okay.
Send law enforcement
Okay.
to take a look first.
Perfect.
If we need the fire inspection.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. And no, that's what's... Oh. So they're occupied. Thank you. I was going to talk about that tree service business. So just so I'm clear, has
Certainly
this,
on our radar, from what I understand that they,
did this just start? The
no,
business,
it's been a little while.
and we just haven't
Someone
known?
mentioned a year, but it didn't start. It started as not Delta City. So that does happen. So in this case, it came to our attention that somebody's occupying and doing these things. They did not really love what they were doing. And so we knew through investigation, they didn't have permits, they didn't have these kind of things, business licenses, all that good stuff. And we decided, well, okay, so we informed them, this is the process, and their step was to apply to see if they could lawfully occupy for that business, go through the permitting process and that sort of thing. So kind of once that starts, it's a matter of, we gave them notice, and then they move through the process. Now, if they don't get some sort of permission, and it's not zoned properly, that sort of thing, they have to cease and desist. Now, if they're doing something that was carrying out, you know, where we needed to take some emergency action, we would have some of that authority. We didn't see that here in this particular case. Now, if they continue operating without a license, that would certainly, if they hadn't gone through the permitting process, we would have taken it. It isn't unusual, people don't do them thinking they're lawful, and then the next thing that is, they didn't get the permits, they didn't do these things, and we give them notice, and then they start it, and in some cases, they're awarded their business license, because it was zoned properly, and that's, so we're letting that take its course, and that needs to get involved with the zoning right, the zoning review of the plans, and what type of operations. So I can't tell you how far we're into that. I'll give you an update as soon as.
Thank you.
Open ad. Oh, I don't know. That's my bedtime. Zach, thank you for everything. It's been great here, as long as I've been, and longer. Yeah. I actually prefer the new way of the minute. I don't want to do that to Chantal. I saw her face when he said 7 hours, but I don't think, I mean, yes, it could happen, but I don't think there's any kids in their basement trying to hack into Edwardsville city council meetings. I just don't. I mean, if anything, they go for KCK. I don't know. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. One thing that was brought to our attention was a mobile home fire that happened just a couple of days ago, and I have noticed frequent concerns from our mobile home residents of issues with their water lines. Come to find out, and correct me, both chiefs, if I'm wrong, but that is a privately owned water line, so we don't really have any control over the maintenance of that as of now. Unfortunately, that could be a life or death situation in the future. So I was hoping maybe you could come back to us with some ideas as far as if there's an ordinance or something we need to pursue to make sure that they are keeping those water lines in a state that is usable to put out a fire if it should come up. So we're not in that situation again.
Collaborated, get the background. suspect runoff, they probably shut it off due to some other reason. So what they're doing is they get new gear, they said, well, it's so here, and maybe the condition of the overall line that way. But they of course connect to EPU, we don't know this, and there doesn't appear to be ultimate authority to make them correct it at the legislative level here. So we would want to research that more, and we would start a plan on how do we try to bring it to some resolve. But the fire department historically has known that these issues exist, and they respond accordingly. Their plan of the fire attack there, they understand going in, there might not be an adequate level of water at the area, so they're prepared to force mutual aid to fire, active fire going to get mutual aid, and of course have water on pumpers and that sort of thing. And there is access to water, it's just a long way away. I think you got over 6,000 feet of hose, or maybe reach that, it's a long, long way. So, you know, I don't know if they're going to drafting and some other ways, but given the, I suppose, the burning capability of some of these structures, they're so close together and that sort of thing, it's something we should address, and I think it's come to fruition now. It's so public that there's a number of people in the normal community that for the first time said, oh, there's we need the water here. So that may be news to them. And I think maybe some of the council are in touch, you know, on social media, and see that they close those, the water will be off this day, the water will be off that day. So I think it's something that they've been dealing with for a long time. So we will do our part. We'll get a report back to you.
Very good. Councilman Scott brought up the right-of-way mowing, and I actually have had residents ask me about why does the city pick and choose where we mow right-of-way? If we're mowing it for one resident, should we be mowing it for all of our residents? You know, we're all paying the property taxes here, and so we probably need to narrow that down on if we either need to mow the right-of-way or not mow the right-of-way, and then we don't have, it was my understanding according to our policies that the right-of-way is the property owner's responsibility. And so when our tax dollars are paying for right-of-way mowing for some residents and not others, then we get those questions. And I think that goes to this snow removal. I'll not belabor that too much for the sidewalks, but when we had passed the sidewalk ordinance, that was pertaining to new sidewalks that were getting put in on private property, not and so that we weren't installing 800 feet of a sidewalk and then saying, okay, you owner have to shovel, maintain, replace that sidewalk when it crumbles. My understanding, what I was told at that point, is the city does not enforce any snow removal maintenance at that point. But then we were like, okay, if we're not enforcing it, then why is it on the books? That could be used against our property owners. I don't know. Usually, we do have a handful of snow occurrences every year. We might be in a position to take care of that as a city at one point. We might also be in the position to say, do we want sidewalks? Or do we want to say we can't do sidewalks because we can't shovel them constantly? We might have a choice of, do we want sidewalks and then maybe 10 days a year we can't use it because there's ice or snow? Or do we not want to invest in sidewalks at all because we don't want that 10 days of shoveling? Like there's just some balance there that we need to strike and find out. The two things on my list, and then I'll be done. Minutes. I also like the short summary version or verbatim. The verbatim I think is too extraneous on our staffing. We have talked about losing staffing and how we want to appreciate their time now that we're after 10 o'clock at night. So wrap it up really quick. But we want to appreciate our staff and not take for granted their time. And so when we're talking 5 to 7 hours to type up everything I'm saying right now, to type up that summary, that wasn't even verbatim. If we go verbatim, that's even longer. But the concern that I've heard among multiple members of the council is when it's not verbatim, when it's how we have done it before, it's only partial. And so our community is thinking they're getting the full picture of everything that's said when actually they are not. And so if we don't do verbatim, it makes a little bit more sense to do the line item and then make a note on there. The actual discussion and conversation in full can be found on our website, on YouTube. And that's what, Chief, I was going to ask you. I know police department typically stores recording for a certain amount of time. can't we also store the videos should we need to refer back to those for a certain amount of time to make sure they're safely protected, even if we have to do that outside of YouTube?
And that's certainly something we do, as long as we have the recording and it can be downloaded to a certain device. We wouldn't mix it with the PD stuff at all, but we could host, some sort of server space to host those for a certain amount of time, whatever the retention matrix we would decide for that, in addition to the YouTube posting and a link on webpage, however we're doing that, then I think what you're suggesting is if we had some sort of storage space just for that, so if there is an open records request, then we can store that recording on either audio or audio and video together.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd even be fine with having one of the tablets down here that somebody could come watch it if they don't have internet access. But my concern is if it's not verbatim, it's giving a false impression that it is because of how lengthy it is. In addition to that, and even prioritized over that, is our city staff time being used for something that we go, okay, approve. And our community isn't generally reading over the minutes, we're watching the videos, we're coming to the meetings. So.
Can I comment real quick? Just the challenge with the audio is that the quality that we have right now is not sufficient for that, and then we're not ADA compliant. If we have, a handicapped person that's hard of hearing or deaf, how are they going to listen to audio if they don't have the minutes or a summary of what we've been doing the last 8 years, in writing? And that's what I expressed to our city manager, city administrator about, we're not being ADA compliant and we're going to be open up for liability.
So actually, our minutes are not dictated by a statutory law to be any sort of ADA compliant. We can do what I'm talking about would be compliant within state statute. So they would be able to read the agenda item, the motion, who voted, and how the vote went. So that would be compliant, but still we're not serving that resident in the same way by giving them a partial picture of the meeting as if it were the full picture of everything that was stated at the meeting, instead of doing the summary, saving Chantal several hours after each meeting, and then we can note on there should that person want to have an audio or video sent to them. We could do that. In addition, I think Chief Matthews mentioned earlier, we could probably start implementing where we state who is speaking before we speak. And so that way it makes it a lot clearer. We can look at upgrading audio if needed. But even if you miss a couple words in audio, they're still getting a much better understanding of all of the conversation that's happening compared to a summary report on a 4+ hour meeting. So that being said, Zach, thank you for your time with us. Thank you so much for the work. I've already had residents missing that you'll be involved in our city and in your part that you've played. And so thank you so much for your time and service to us. Best of luck to you and your family going forward.